Good afternoon, friends. I am KJ Joseph, Director of Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation. Welcome all of you for the 9th edition of the National Webinar on Local Governments for Sustainable Development, Good Practice from Kerala, organized by Kerala Institute of Local Administration. And good afternoon, friends. And I'm KJ Joseph, Kerala Mission, Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation. Welcome all of you for the 9th edition of the National Webinar on Local Governments for Sustainable Development. Is there a problem in the audio? Miraj, hello. Miraj, hello.
Yes, sir, I have muted.
Okay. Today we are going to deal with climate change, biodiversity, and disaster management. As you are aware, this is an issue that has been of central concern for common people, policymakers, the academia, and the press, especially during the recent past. Today, we are going to have presentations from 8 Grama Panchayats, one from Kannur, one from Wayanad, one from Ernakulam, 3 from Alapi, and 2 from Kollam. I'm especially happy to note that we have Dr. Muralee Thummarukkudy, perhaps the most authentic person to deliberate on this issue, to inaugurate this webinar. Also, we have been able to get a highly competent and equally competent panel to deliberate on this issue. We have Mr. Unnikrishnan Divakaran Nair, Head Climate Change at the Commonwealth Secretariat, Professor Geeta Lakshmi, Director Crop Management, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, and finally, we have Dr. Shekhar Kuriakose, Member Secretary, Kerala State Disaster Management Authority. Without much ado, I would like to warmly welcome you once again and request Dr. Thummarukkudy to inaugurate this webinar. And over to you, Dr. Thummarukkudy.
Thank you. My friends, wherever you are listening this from, I want to start by thanking Dr. Joseph for the kind introduction, Dr. Joy, Director General of KILA, for inviting me to the session. And it's truly an absolute honor to be with this panel, Dr. Unnikrishnan, Dr. Geeta Lakshmi, and of course, my dear friend, Dr. Shekhar Kuriakose. I'm interested in this topic because of 2 reasons. Number one, because it is related to local government institutions and how much I am proud of the level of competence, the level of involvement, and the level of achievement of our local government bodies. I have always known the democratic decentralization, but during the 2018 floods, it became so absolutely clear as to how involved our local government bodies and representatives were in responding to that disaster. At that point, they did not have the formal authority or the responsibility to deal with disasters. There was other government departments, but that did not deter them from acting, even though they did not have adequate training at that point of time. Since then, the Kerala Institute of Local Administration and Kerala Disaster Management Authority has come together to train officials and elected representatives in the local self-government departments about both disaster management and climate change. I understand that as per the latest plan, they also have been given a lot more mandate, room, and even resources to deal with disasters. Every local self-government body in Kerala is now supposed to have a local disaster management plan. And every ward is supposed to have trained volunteers. Kerala is supposed to have a crop of more than 300,000 volunteers for disaster management, and they have actually been enrolled. I know you have a training program on disaster management for such volunteers on Killa. There are also other training programs for people in disaster management. This level of decentralization is absolutely essential if disaster management were to really work and be functional. That's the only way it has worked in any place. Massive disaster response systems based on national militaries or national civil defense agencies has been the norm in the past. Disaster happens, these forces come down and try to do rescue operation. But international experience over the last 20 years has proven that 99% of people are saved by their neighbors. And 99% of the recovery will happen in the village. More than 50% of the resources for the recovery will be found in the local areas. So therefore, it is absolutely essential that people at the very local level have the understanding about the disasters, are able to organize themselves for early warning to recovery. In this context, the work done by the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority, as well as Killa, is absolutely important, but also pioneering. So I want to congratulate them for that. And I'm very delighted that they are sharing that lessons nationally. But in my opinion, you should not stop nationally. We should do this internationally. We can think of organizing an event which is more global with the same panel, telling the same story, because your story is so interesting and it needs to be heard around the world. What you are doing is absolutely comparable to what has been the case in Cuba for over a generation, what I have seen happens in Switzerland, where every village has a civil defense center and every individual is trained on that. It's very similar to what happens in Japan. So our story needs to be heard and told. And in due course, and we are just beginning, due course, the success would be seen as an outcome. I also want to say a couple of words about climate change. Till very recently, maybe till Hurricane Oki came, climate change was something a little bit not this generation's problem. Of course, we had a Kerala State Action Plan on climate change, but it was more like a plan with no real feet on the ground. But events from Oki period have suddenly brought climate change as a lot more real to people in Kerala. People are listening, and almost in an irrational way, people are listening. 2018, there was a big flood. 2019, there was heavy rains, more death happened due to landslide. And people started assuming that due to climate change, every August will be a month of flood and disasters in Kerala. This year, there was tremendous amount of newspaper articles. There was even pressure. People asked me, is there going to be a flood in August? And I said, there is no science like that, but people are convinced. Now, of course, it's very easy to go with the flow and say, yes, climate change is real and there's going to be flood every August. Of course, science doesn't work like that. But the fact that people now have a lot more awareness and almost an irrational fear of climate change is something to be noted. What we should do is to harness those attention, not the fear, but the attention that people are now willing to listen. And this is exactly what KILA is working with Disaster Management Authority and other institutions so that every panchayat now have a climate change action plan. And that would then become the foundation for adaptation and to some degree mitigation. And eventually they're aggregated into a state action plan. A state action plan sitting in Trivandrum has no meaning. A local action plan where people actually understand the issue, they feel about it, they act on it, it will have significance. So with these brief words, I once again want to say that Kerala has a lot to offer to India, to other states, to the world. I wish the webinar all the best. I unfortunately have another event starting in Australia, which started actually 10 minutes back. So I have to leave, but I will be watching the recorded show. I thank the organizers and I congratulate all the panchayats who's participating in this. And you have an excellent panel with you to give you mentorship and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thummarukkudy, for those really encouraging words and words of much relevance today. And we cannot agree with you more that though in a very humble way, Kerala started, we are in fact catching up with the experience of Japan or Cuba or even Switzerland. That is something which any Keralite to feel really proud of. And thank you very much. And we are very sure that KILA and we will be able to think in terms of showcasing our experience to a much wider global audience and learn from each other's experience. Thank you very much. Dr. Joy, shall we now start the presentations from Grama Panchayat?
Yes, please.
Perhaps Dr. Joy will take up. Please, Dr. Joy.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Thank you, Dr. Muralee, and thank you all. We are going into the presentations now. As Dr. Joseph had mentioned, we have panchayats from various places across the state. And after the presentations, we will have the panelists responding to that. And finally, there is a question and answer session. This is how it goes on. So with that, let me welcome Kurumathur Grama Panchayat from Kannur district on their experiences in one of these areas of biodiversity and climate change and disaster. So how the program is like that. This today's event is on climate change, biodiversity, and disaster management. Some of the panchayats might have dealt with in biodiversity, some in climate change, some mixed ones, and also disaster management. So it's you get a mix of experiences they are going to share. So over to Kurumathur Grama Panchayat, Kannur district.
Get me to participate the biodiversity webinar on behalf of Kurumathur Grama Panchayat. I think it was an inevitable program as far as LSG concerned. I submit the reports we conducted the last few years as follows.
Kurumathur Grama Panchayat has an area of 50.79 square kilometer with 31,023 population. The life of people in the panchayat is prosperous with agricultural production. Many important agricultural institutions like District Agricultural Farm in Karimbam, Biodiversity Center, Agrotech Institute, Extension Training Center, world-renowned Pannur Pepper Research Center, KVK, etc. is situated in the panchayat. Panchayat proved its meritorious note in biodiversity management programs. Panchayat got BMC Award in 2018 for the best Grama Panchayat in Kannur district. More than conserving biodiversity, Panchayat done so many activities to ensure importance to provide adequate facilities for people to earn their livelihood and for the environmental protection. Panchayat has been preserving Biodiversity Center as heritage site. The heritage site is enriched with rare species of plants and birds. Panchayat have been intensively doing the activities related to the protection of wetlands. Panchayat took stringent measures for the water conservation, shore protection, public land river encroachment, and prohibition of usage of plastics, which comes above 50 microns. Apart from this, Kurmathur Grama Panchayat undertook many more programs to conserve biodiversity. Aranekam. Panchayat used 2 acres of land situated at Munderi temple for planting medicinal plants and forest trees. With the help of 5,000 people, Panchayat cleaned river flowing through 12 wards and also planted around 10,000 bamboo plants, forest plants, and in order to prevent landslide, indigenous plants have planted either sides of the river. Under the patronage of Muyyam Vegetable Cluster, in order to conserve the ancestral agricultural produce, Panchayat started indigenous seed producing center for vegetables. Panchayat also started its own sugarcane cultivation. They planted banana plants and yam or elephant food plants in roadsides. For the protection of river, Panchayat used geotechs with a length of 11,000 square meter with the help of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and also made mangrove forest on the shore of Kurmathur Kottappuram river. Panchayat encourages animal husbandry in terms of secondary occupation. They are also protecting the indigenous cow species like Vechur and Kasaragod dwarf. Biodiversity Management Committee convening the meeting in every month and give directions in the 16 watersheds. In order to protect the ecosystem, Panchayat made a watershed master plan and renewed the biodiversity register. To promote apiculture, Panchayat started Honey Innovative Farmer Producer Company. To explore the natural beauty of Kurmathur Grama Panchayat and to promote livelihood activities without harming the nature, Panchayat started Tourism Society. In order to resist disasters like global warming, floods, droughts, and other natural calamities, Panchayat undertakes so many model projects under the leadership of working group formed under Disaster Management Committee. Kurmathur Grama Panchayat is a model for other local governments in Kerala to show the involvement of local communities in management of forest and other natural resources will be an effective way for sustainable development of biodiversity.
President and the team for this from Kurmathur Grama Panchayat. Now we move on to Meenangadi Grama Panchayat in Wayanad district. Over to Meenangadi Grama Panchayat.
Carbon neutral project is the first project introduced in Meenangadi Grama Panchayat. It's an experimental project by the support of Kerala government. The project was proposed by our Honorable Finance Minister Sir Thomas Isaac sir. Government provided 10 crore rupees for tree banking. The main purpose of this project is to propose sector-wise adaptation and mitigation strategies to develop Minangadi Panchayat as a carbon neutral Panchayat by carrying out carbon emission and sequestration analysis in the sectors of transportation, energy, waste, livestock, agriculture, forest, and other land use. This is a going on project.
Wayanad district lies in the Western Ghats at a distance of 76 km from the seashore of Kozhikode. The climate and the land use pattern of Wayanad district show a significant difference from all other districts of Kerala. Carbon Neutral Minangadi is a project to find the solution to the environmental problem by reducing air pollution, which protects our land and help to give back the greenery to the future generation. Minangadi is one of the 23 Grama Panchayats in Wayanad district. It covers a geographical area of 53.51 square kilometers with rocky hill areas, valleys and plains. Even though it receives an annual rainfall about 2,200 millimeters, some parts of Minangadi experience water shortage during summer season. In this region, the temperature ranges between 35 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius during summer season and 29.8 degrees Celsius to 12.5 degrees Celsius during winter season. Minangadi Grama Panchayat achieved the status of carbon neutrality in the district and also a pilot panchayat in this regards. The ambitious project was launched on June 5, 2016 in the World Environment Day with the involvement of people representatives, scientists, students and farmers. As the first step, the Panchayat carried out carbon emission and sequestration analysis in the sector of transportation, energy, waste, livestock, etc. to develop sector-wise adaptation and mitigation strategies to achieve the carbon neutrality. After the analysis of emission levels of carbon, steps were taken to reduce them through the introduction of renewable energy, waste management and changes in agricultural practices. A number of trees were also planted to offset the inevitable emissions. Analyses were conducted by roping student volunteers from school, colleges and others. The emission from the transportation sector was estimated based on the primary and secondary data on vehicles from Motor Vehicle Department and Sample Survey. The emissions from the energy sector was measured based on the primary data obtained from the sample survey audit done at households as well as the consumption data obtained from the State Electricity Board and the LPG dealers. The secondary data was used for assessing the emissions from agricultural, forest and other land use sectors. The information on waste was collected through the primary sample surveys and the observations. The sequestration of carbon was estimated for soil, trees in the homestead, forest and the coffee plantations. Based on the baseline assessment of total emissions and the sequestration for the base year, 14,738.78 ton carbon is the difference between total emission and sequestration, and it is the carbon balance of Minangadi Grama Panchayat for the base year 2016-17. Panchayat adopted several strategies for achieving and maintaining carbon neutrality. Consumption of energy in the form of electricity, fuel wood and LPG contributes to 39% of total greenhouse gas emission in Minangadi Grama Panchayat. So the Panchayat adopted energy efficient equipment to save energy and switch to renewable resources and the best practices that helps to bring down the emission from energy consumptions. The Panchayat provided necessary support for the installation of solar street lamps, replacing filament bulb with the LED bulbs, installing household solar units, and to construct solar bus stands. Composting of organic waste is the backbone of the process of enriching levels of soil carbon. With this objective, the Grama Panchayat promoted composting at households and community level. Pit composting were installed in 500 houses. 500 pot compost units were also installed. Kudumbashree members were actively involved in the collection and segregation of dry waste from around 8,199 houses. The workers from Haritha Karma Sena and Green Army ensures that the household waste is separated at source. They go door to door to collect the plastic and other recyclable waste and bring it to the Resource Recovery Center set up under the Carbon Neutral program. A massive afforestation programs were undertook through the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Program by enriching soil carbon with compost manure, promote regenerative agriculture, introducing climate resilient varieties of paddy, optimizing lift irrigation. Through this, the Panchayat were able to reduce the emission of carbon. Planting trees is like a long-term investment. Tree banking is a scheme introduced by the Panchayat to get paid in advance for the future yield of tree planted now. This scheme provides for ensuring cash benefits in terms of annuity as well as liquidity for the financing. Under the tree mortgaging, a beneficiary can pledge the trees in their homestead or farm to the cooperative bank for short-term loan and advances. With the help of Biodiversity Board, the Biodiversity Register of the Panchayat has digitalized. 509 ponds have been dug in different parts of the Panchayat to store water with the help of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. 37 acres of land brought under the organic cultivation for the year 2016-17. Distributed 7 lakh saplings to the 24 nurseries within the Panchayat with the support of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. LPG crematorium has been built for reducing the pollution through the conventional type of cremation. Through the participation and involvement of thousands of people, the Meenangadi Grama Panchayat is moving towards the prosperity as well as the carbon neutrality.
Thank you, Meenangadi Grama Panchayat President and the team. Now we move on to Kadangallur Grama Panchayat in Ernakulam district. Kadangallur Grama Panchayat in Ernakulam district. Over to Kadangallur Grama Panchayat.
Disaster Management Plan is an action plan formulated under the leadership of Rebuild Kerala program and KILA. Kadangallur Grama Panchayat is one of the Grama Panchayats which has successfully completed the disaster management plan by ensuring people's participation. The Panchayat ensured disaster resilience through preparing local level projects formulated for disaster resilience and disaster management.
2019 അവസാനം രൂപം കൊണ്ട കോവിഡ്-19 ഇതേയും അനുഭവങ്ങൾ ഓർത്തിണക്കിക്കൊണ്ടാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ ഈ ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ സേനയ്ക്ക് രൂപം നൽകിയത്. ഇനിയൊരു പ്രളയമോ വരൾച്ചയോ മറ്റെന്തെങ്കിലും പകർച്ചവ്യാധികളോ അനുഭവപ്പെട്ടാൽ നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ നേരിടാൻ കഴിയുമെന്നതടക്കമുള്ള പരിശീലനം വിവിധ കേന്ദ്രങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് നമുക്ക് ലഭിക്കും.
Around 47,000 people are living in the Panchayat were mainly depend on the industrial sector for their livelihood. Recent floods in Kerala severely affected the Panchayat. Due to its proximity towards Periyar, large-scale damage occurred in 21 wards of the Panchayat. %85 of the places were drowned in the flood. The Panchayat has successfully completed the disaster management plan by following several steps in a systematic manner. This includes conducting special Grama Sabhas, focus group discussions, extensive level of data collection, developmental seminar, disaster management plan exhibitions. Panchayat did an extensive level of data collection by ensuring the participation of all sectors of people in the locality. They included the experience from the aged and socially committed people. This data helps them to enrich the plan. Panchayat conducted exhibitions along with the developmental seminar to portray the process of disaster management plan preparation to the public. They have drawn many local maps to identify the resources. Panchayat has conducted several activities as a part of disaster management plan. Kadangallur Grama Panchayat has formed 4 special emergency response teams in addition as per the direction of state government. This include vehicle shelter, animal protection shelter, monitoring team, documentation team. The monitoring team is for observing the area after evacuation. The documentation team is a technically trained team to document and keep the track of the activities of each response teams in the ward. Panchayat have conducted trainings to 1,800 volunteers at ward level emergency response teams. The Fire and Rescue Department provided intensive training with boats, life jackets and ropes to 34 selected persons from each ward. The Panchayat is going to conduct a mock drill at ward level. This will equip the people to understand what to do if people have to be evacuated in case of emergency. They have prepared the script of evacuation procedure and discussed in the ward level. Panchayat also conducted first aid training with the support of Health Department. Through this disaster management plan, Kadangallur Grama Panchayat is well equipped to undertake disaster resilience in a better manner.
Thank you, the President and team from Kadangallur Grama Panchayat. Now we move on to Viyapuram Grama Panchayat from Alappuzha district. Viyapuram Grama Panchayat.
പമ്പ അച്ചൻകോവിൽ നദികളുടെ സംഗമ ഭൂമിയാണ് വിയപുരം ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്ത്. വിയപുരം ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തിലെ ജൈവവൈദ്യുത രജിസ്റ്ററിനെ ആസ്പദമാക്കിയാണ് BMC ജൈവവൈദ്യുത ബോർഡിൻ്റെയും സംയുക്തമായി പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ പരിശോധിക്കുകയും ആ പ്രവർത്തനത്തിൻ്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ അത് ജനങ്ങളിൽ എത്തിക്കുവാനും അത് ജനകീയമാക്കുവാനും പഞ്ചായത്ത് പ്രത്യേകം അച്ചൻകോവിലാറിനെയും പമ്പയാറിൻ്റെയും തീരങ്ങൾ സംരക്ഷിക്കുന്നതിന് മുളകളും രാമച്ചവും കയർപ്പു വസ്ത്രം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് സംരക്ഷിക്കുവാനും ശ്രമിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതോടൊപ്പം ആലപ്പുഴ ജില്ലയിലെ ഏക വനമായ വിയപുരം വനം സംരക്ഷിത വനമായി നിലകൊള്ളുവാനും അതിനെ സംരക്ഷിക്കുവാനും പ്രത്യേകം ശ്രമിക്കും. അതോടൊപ്പം ഞവരനെല്ല്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇവിടെ കരഭൂമി കുറവും കൃഷിഭൂമി കൂടുതലുമാണ്. പരമ്പരാഗത വിത്തിനങ്ങൾ കൃഷിയിറക്കി പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിച്ച് ഭക്ഷ്യസുരക്ഷ ഉറപ്പാക്കുവാനും പ്രത്യേകം ശ്രമിക്കും. അതോടൊപ്പം ഈ വർഷം BMCയുടെ പദ്ധതി എന്ന രീതി തേനൂറും തേൻവരിക്ക, എല്ലാ ഭവനങ്ങളിലും തേനൂറും തേൻവരിക്ക എന്ന നാടൻ ഭക്ഷണ രീതി അത് വിയപുരം തേനൂറും തേൻവരിക്ക എന്ന ക്രമത്തിലേക്ക് ആക്കുവാനും പദ്ധതി ലക്ഷ്യമിട്ടു. ആ പദ്ധതിയുടെ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നടന്നുകൊണ്ടു. ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ വിയപുരം ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തിന്റെ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ജൈവ വൈവിധ്യ കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷത്തെ സംസ്ഥാന ജൈവവൈവിധ്യ പുരസ്കാരം ലഭിച്ചു. ഈ വർഷവും പുരസ്കാരങ്ങൾക്ക് മീതെ ജനങ്ങളിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ ഇപ്പോൾ പക്ഷി സങ്കേതം എന്ന തരത്തിലേക്ക് ഈ വനത്തിൽ വരുന്ന പക്ഷികളെയും ഇവിടെ വരുന്ന മൃഗങ്ങളെയും നാട്ടിൽ വരുന്ന മൃഗങ്ങളെയും നാട്ടിൽ വരുന്ന പക്ഷികളെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് പരസ്പര ധാരണ പ്രകാരം ഒരു നിരീക്ഷണം നടത്തി അത് ജനങ്ങളിൽ എത്തിക്കുവാൻ ഈ പ്രാവശ്യം പദ്ധതി ലക്ഷ്യമിടുന്നു. കാവുകളുടെയും കുളങ്ങളുടെയും സംരക്ഷണം. കാവുകളുടെയും കുളങ്ങളുടെയും സംരക്ഷണം എന്ന് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത് കാവുകൾ എത്ര എന്നതോ കുളങ്ങൾ എത്ര എന്നതോ എന്നുള്ള കണക്കെടുത്തതിന് ശേഷം എടുത്ത് ബോധ്യപ്പെടുത്തിയതിന് ശേഷം ആ കുളങ്ങൾ അവർക്ക് ജനകീയ തലത്തിലെ സംരക്ഷിക്കത്തക്ക രീതിയിൽ സംവിധാനം, അങ്ങനെ 3-4 കുളങ്ങളും 4 കാവുകളും സംരക്ഷിക്കാൻ നമ്മുടെ പഞ്ചായത്തിന് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Piyapuram is a small village located in the northeastern part of the Karthikapalli Taluk in Alappuzha district. A significant portion of the land is fallow, covering an area of 918 hectares. Piyapuram is a low-lying area up to 2 meters above the sea level. The canals alone are 11.5 kilometers long. The main occupation of the people is agriculture. 92% of the farmers are nominal farmers. Extreme heat and cold are not experienced here as the panchayat is below sea level. The average maximum temperature is 32 degrees Celsius and minimum temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. The average rainfall is 2,410.80 millimeter. During rainy season, most of the places in the panchayat will be flooded. Natural disaster often cause crop failure. This will be miserable for those who depend upon agriculture for their livelihood. In the year 2018, Biodiversity Management Committee of Piyapuram Grama Panchayat undertook a number of activities. Significant gains have been made by intervening in various environmental issues. The nursery was set up in 2018 in collaboration with Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Visitors from other local bodies came to see and study it. Saplings were planted in schools, institutions, public places, and reserve forests on June 5, 2018, Environment Day. Biodiversity management committees were involved in the selection and maintenance of the seedlings. Flower cultivation, vegetable cultivation, medicinal plant cultivation were carried out in the grow bags on the main road of the panchayat. Ornamental plant cultivation was also done along with it. As it is protected by biofence, the place quickly gained a reputation as garden. Coir geotextile protected the sides of the streams. Coastal protection was done by planting vetiver and bamboo. A serious study has been conducted in collaboration with the Literacy Mission considering the problems faced by the water resources. Based on the study report prepared on rivers, plastic-free activities were conducted in connection with the major water festival in the area, and necessary guidelines and financial assistance were given to conduct the water festival without polluting the water. The fallow land has been made suitable for agriculture. Onnatukara's unique sesame cultivation was encouraged on panchayat land. Assistance was given for Navara paddy cultivation, which is a medicinal plant. Panchayat is in constant touch with the seed production center in the district and is giving direction for the production of herbs and fruits as per the local demand. Incentives and assistance were provided for the rearing and protecting breeds such as Vechur cow and Kasargod calf. Biofence construction with bamboo was encouraged. The offspring produced after the breeding of the fish in the paddy field were able to grow in the public water resources, thereby increasing fish production and fishing. Piyapuram Grama Panchayat has undertaken the projects for the protection of ponds, sacred groves, and the projects like Thenurum Thenvarika and Sambhurna Thenvarika Grama Panchayat. The biopark was constructed by providing protection on the biofence near the Shastamuri temple. Many plants, flowers, and foliage were planted. The area, which is full of garbage and pollutants, have been turned into an eye-catching sanctuary. Fishing activities using nets were monitored and avoided. In this way, natural fish breeding conditions were maintained. 75% of the area of Panchayat is Punjapadam. In the month of March, after the cultivation, it was customary to burn the paddy and kutch in the paddy field to make ashes. Strict instructions were given to the farmers to avoid this. BMCs are the gods of environment. BMC and the Panchayat worked together and did many activities. The use of herbicides was strictly controlled. The sand erosion in the river was completely eliminated. Stop catching fishes in the field with hook. Burning of field after harvesting is prohibited. Led afforestation activities, statistical study of water resources and report preparation. Watershed master plan prepared in collaboration with the irrigation department. About 15 acres of land belongs to Forest Department was declared as reserve forest by Kerala Forest Department in 2013. It is the only forest in Alappuzha district. In 2018, Panchayat received the award for Best Biodiversity Management Committee. Viyapuram Grama Panchayat is a perfect example to show how a local body should conserve biodiversity and maintain its sustainability ways such as creation and protection of community conserved areas and joint forest management.
Thank you, Viyapuram Grama Panchayat President and the team. Now we move on to Nadumudi Grama Panchayat in Alappuzha district. Nadumudi Grama Panchayat.
സംസ്ഥാന ഗവൺമെൻറ്റിൻ്റെ നിർദ്ദേശമനുസരിച്ചും 2018 ഉണ്ടായ വലിയ വെള്ളപ്പൊക്കത്തെ അതിജീവിക്കുന്നതിനുള്ള നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങൾ തരുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി ഒരു ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ ജനകീയ ആസൂത്രണ രേഖ തയ്യാറാക്കാൻ പഞ്ചായത്തുകളോടും തദ്ദേശ സ്വയംഭരണ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളോടും ആഹ്വാനം ചെയ്തതിൻ്റെ ഫലമായി നമ്മുടെ കിലയുടെ ഡയറക്ടർ യോയി ഇളമണ്ണും പരിഷത്തിൻ്റെ പ്രവർത്തകരും പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ വന്നും വിപുലമായ രീതിയിലുള്ള യോഗം വിളിച്ചുകൂട്ടി ഈ ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ രേഖ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതിൻ്റെ ആവശ്യകതയെക്കുറിച്ച് ബോധ്യപ്പെട്ടതിൻ്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ കിലയുടെ ആളുകളും ഗ്യാൻ ആലപ്പുഴ എന്ന സംഘടനയുടെ പ്രവർത്തകരും കൂടിയാണ് പഞ്ചായത്ത് മെമ്പർമാരടക്കമുള്ള ജനപ്രതിനിധികളും കൂടിയാണ് ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ രേഖ തയ്യാറാക്കിയത്. ആ ദുരന്ത നിവാരണ രേഖയെ പ്രതിപാദിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത് 2018 വെള്ളപ്പൊക്കം പോലുള്ള ദുരന്തങ്ങളെ അതിജീവിക്കുന്നതിനുള്ള മാർഗരേഖകളാണ് അതിനകത്ത് അടങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. 2018 വെള്ളപ്പൊക്കം നമ്മൾ കേരളത്തിലും ലോകത്ത് തന്നെ ആദ്യമായിട്ടാണ് ഇതുപോലൊരു വെള്ളപ്പൊക്കം ഉണ്ടായത്. അതിന് ഒരുപാട് കൃഷിനാശവും ഒരുപാട് നാശങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ ഈ പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ കേരളത്തിലെമ്പാടും ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിനെ അതിജീവിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങളടങ്ങിയ ഒരു രേഖയാണ് നമ്മുടെ സംസ്ഥാനത്ത് ആദ്യമായി നിലവിൽ പഞ്ചായത്താണ് ആ രേഖ ഉണ്ടാക്കി. അതിൻ്റെ ഉദ്ഘാടനം തിരുവനന്തപുരത്ത് വെച്ച് നമ്മുടെ തദ്ദേശ സ്വയംഭരണ വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി മെയ്ദിൻ സാറാണ് അത് പ്രകാശനം ചെയ്തത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ രേഖ തയ്യാറാക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി നമ്മുടെ പഞ്ചായത്തിൻ്റെ വിവിധ മേഖലകളിലുള്ള പ്രായം ഉള്ള ആളുകളും ഇതുപോലുള്ള ദുരന്തങ്ങൾ കണ്ട് അനുഭവിച്ച ആളുകളും ചെറുപ്പക്കാരും അടക്കമുള്ള നാനാവിഭാഗങ്ങളിലുള്ള ആളുകളുമായി വിവിധ കേന്ദ്രങ്ങളിൽ വെച്ച് ചർച്ച നടത്തിയാണ് ഇതുപോലൊരു രേഖ 2-3 ആഴ്ച കൊണ്ടാണ് നമുക്ക് പൂർത്തീകരിക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞത്. പഞ്ചായത്തിനെ സംബന്ധിച്ചോളം ഈ രേഖ ആദ്യമായി ഇറക്കിയതിൽ പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കാനും കഴിഞ്ഞതിൽ അഭിമാനിക്കുകയാണ്. അതിനുവേണ്ടി സഹകരിച്ച് രേഖ ഇറക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി തയ്യാറായ മുഴുവൻ ആളുകളെ നെടുമുടി ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തിന് വേണ്ടി അഭിവാദ്യം ചെയ്യുന്നു.
It was decided to prepare a disaster management plan with the participation of the people in all the Grama Panchayats and municipal corporations in Kerala as part of the Naam Namukkai mass campaign. The first disaster management plan in Kerala was prepared by Nedumudi Grama Panchayat in Alappuzha district. As a member of the team that prepared this document, I would like to tell you about the preparation of the first disaster management plan. By now, You must be aware of what is a disaster management plan and its contents. Now I will explain how to create a disaster management plan. This planning document consists of 7 main chapters: local self-government's general information and its capacities and resources, and the important phone numbers. All of this information was collected from the development records of the Panchayat and other institutions under the Panchayat. The completion of this chapter was generally very easy, except for the delay in gathering information from various places that had been recorded in advance. The involvement of volunteers in collecting the phone numbers of individuals has been very good. More time was needed to prepare chapters on climate change, disaster risk, disaster response planning, preparedness, mitigation activities, and social empowerment measures. In order to facilitate this, meetings were organized with the participation of ward members, volunteers, ASHA activists, paddy field collective members, and representatives of people. Through these meetings, it was decided who would be able to gather information, and separate meetings would be held accordingly. In addition, the information obtained from the discussions at these meetings has been compiled and included in this document. Various volunteers from the Panchayat themselves shared their experiences from the past. The formation of the emergency response team is an important one in the document. With the help of the respective ward members, teams could be formed at the ward level knowing the interest of the people. 4 teams have been formed: the warning team, the investigation and rescue team, the shelter management team, and the first aid or basic life support team. The list of members of each team was compiled by the respective ward members. Training programs for the team members were also conducted in the Panchayat. Nedumudi Grama Panchayat is the first in Kerala to organize a training program for the emergency response team. For this Panchayat, floods of 2018-19 was a catastrophe. After the floods of 2018, with the help of a group of young people, they visited all the houses and recorded the severity of the floods. The survey was completed using a free software called Open Data Kit. As part of this, a flood map of Nedumudi Grama Panchayat was prepared. This map is included in the document. Avoiding the major catastrophic floods in Nedumudi Panchayat is not an immediate task. So the main thing to do is to perform disaster mitigation. From the studies conducted, we realized that the flooding can be reduced to some extent through the modernization of streams. As part of that, a number of activities were carried out there for flood mitigation. The basic data collection of all the canals in the Panchayat were completed with the help of technologies. In the second phase, a civil survey was conducted in these canals with the help of civil engineering students. As a part of the survey, detailed information was obtained on the length, width, depth, and amount of silt in the canals. All subsequent operations relied on this information. Statistics of the water carrying capacity to be made available through rehabilitation of canals were identified and reported. The details of the 2 main interventions are included in the document. Estimates including the cost for both phases are included in the table. The water storage capacity of the entire canals is calculated in such a way as to specify the capacity to hold rainwater in it. It was decided to implement a pilot project, realizing that the rejuvenation of streams played a huge role in the survival of the paddy fields. In the first phase, a 3.5 kilometer long canal around the eastern and western part of the Thumpuram was selected for the rejuvenation. This work is currently in progress.
Thank you, Nedumudi Grama Panchayat President and the team. Now we move on to Nedumbana Grama Panchayat in Kollam district. Nedumbana Grama Panchayat in Kollam district.
Climate change is a global phenomenon now become evident enough to impact our day-to-day livelihood directly. Local government institutions would be the one best aware of the climate change issues there. Local governments are bound to develop programs to analyze the impacts of climate change. Nedumbana Grama Panchayat in Kollam district has put a stepping stone towards climate change adaptation and mitigation programs through preparing local action plan on climate change. In the past few years, there are remarkable impacts on the environment structure and biodiversity of Nedumbana Grama Panchayat in Kollam district due to climate change. Geography of the panchayat can be categorized into midland area, consists of hills, paddy fields, ponds, canals, rivulets, sacred groves, etc. Nedumbana Grama Panchayat covers an area of 28.06 square kilometer. The temperature ranges between 23.75 degrees Celsius to 31.75 degrees Celsius with an average rainfall of 2,400 millimeters.
വ്യതിയാനവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് 2019 കനത്ത പ്രളയത്തെ തുടർന്നാണ് ഇത്തരത്തിൽ കാലാവസ്ഥാ വ്യതിയാനവുമായി അതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെ പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ നടത്തണമെന്നുള്ള ഒരു ആലോചനയുടെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിലാണ് പഞ്ചായത്ത് ജില്ലാ പഞ്ചായത്തും ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തുമായി ചേർന്നൊരു പദ്ധതി ഏറ്റെടുക്കുകയും ഇതിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ കില തന്നെ മുൻകൈയെടുത്ത് ഒരു പഠനരേഖ തയ്യാറാക്കുകയും ആ കണ്ടെത്തലിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ അടിയന്തരമായി ചെയ്യേണ്ട ചില പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നിർദ്ദേശിക്കപ്പെടുകയുമുണ്ടായി. ഈ പ്രവർത്തനത്തിൽ പ്രധാനമായും വ്യത്യസ്ത മേഖലകളിലുള്ള ആളുകൾ, അനുഭവ സമ്പത്തുള്ള ആളുകളെ എല്ലാം കൂട്ടിയോജിപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് അവരുടേതായ കൂടി അനുഭവങ്ങൾ കൂടി പങ്കിട്ടുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള രേഖയിലേക്ക് പഞ്ചായത്ത് പോയത്.
Impacts of climate change in Nedumbana Grama Panchayat. The flow of river and its tributaries got reduced and the panchayat witnessed decrease in the water level of 29 ponds. Paddy fields reduced from 250 hectares to 150 hectares over the last 30 years. Sacred groves is the highly affected area in the panchayat due to climate change. Area of sacred groves reduced from 4 hectares to 2.4 hectares over the last 30 years. Loss of flora and fauna also identified associated with the sacred groves, paddy fields and ponds. There is also a decrease in the number of some birds, earthworms, frogs, butterfly and some indigenous trees. Agriculture become an risky economic activity. Shift in agriculture from food crops to cash crops. Increase in mortality rate of livestock. Decline in groundwater level. Reduction in local variety of fish species. Increase in sunstroke, cancer, contagious diseases, kidney patients. Mitigation and adaptation activities taken by the panchayat. Automated weather station, water conservation activities, expanding coconut cultivation, Pachatturuthu, awareness creation among public, documenting climate related news by students, paddy cultivation, conducting yoga classes, soil conservation activities, organic farming, animal husbandry program, other activities, climate smart agriculture, low carbon development and carbon sink, social forestry, energy conservation activities, agro-tourism, updating biodiversity register. Through implementing these activities, Panchayat were able to mitigate climate change in a better way.
Thank you, President of the Nedambana Grama Panchayat. And now we move on to another very important spot. That's the Manro Turut Grama Panchayat. Over to Manro Turut Grama Panchayat.
13.2 സ്ക്വയർ കിലോമീറ്റർ വിസ്തൃതിയുള്ള ഒരു ഭൂപ്രദേശമാണ് മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്ത്. അതിൻ്റെ 6 സ്ക്വയർ കിലോമീറ്ററോളവും മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്തിന്റെ ജലമാണ്. അതായത് അഷ്ടമുടി കായലും കല്ലടയാറും ജലാതിർത്തി തീർക്കുന്ന ചെറു ദ്വീപ സമൂഹങ്ങൾ ചേർന്നതാണ് മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്ത് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. എന്നാൽ ഈ ആഗോളതാപനത്തിന്റെയും കാലാവസ്ഥാ വ്യതിയാനത്തിന്റെയും ഒക്കെ ഫലമായി ജലനിരപ്പ് ഉയരുകയും പിന്നെ ഭൂമി താഴ്ന്നു പോകുന്ന ഒരു പ്രതിഭാസവും കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അതിന്റെ ഫലമായി ഓരോ വർഷം കഴിയുന്നവരും ജലനിരപ്പ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഉയർന്നു വരിക, പുരടങ്ങളിൽ കയറി, പിന്നെ വീടിനുള്ളിൽ കയറി, അത് ടോയ്ലറ്റിനുള്ളിൽ കയറുന്ന സമയത്ത് ടോയ്ലറ്റ് ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ പറ്റാതെ പോകുന്ന ഒരവസ്ഥ. അങ്ങനെ കൃഷി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, തെങ്ങ് ഏകവിള തെങ്ങായിരുന്നു, തെങ്ങ് കായ്ഫലമേ ഇല്ലാതായി മാറിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. മത്സ്യത്തൊഴിലാളികൾക്ക് മത്സ്യം ലഭിക്കാതായിരിക്കുന്നു. നടന്നു പോകുന്ന വഴികളെല്ലാം വെള്ളം കയറി നാശമായിരിക്കുന്നു. വീടുകളെല്ലാം തന്നെ ഇടിഞ്ഞു പോകുന്നു, ഒക്കെ പ്രതിഭാസം നേരിടുന്നു. അങ്ങനെ നിരവധിയായ പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ നേരിട്ടുകൊണ്ട് ജീവിതം അസാധ്യമാകുന്ന ഒരു അവസ്ഥയിലേക്കാണ് മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്ത് ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്ത് ഇന്ന് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. മുഴുവനായിട്ടുള്ള പ്രശ്നങ്ങളാണ്. എന്നാൽ ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന നമ്മളുടെ പരിശ്രമം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എങ്ങനെ ജീവിപ്പിക്കാം, പുതുജീവനോപാധികൾ കണ്ടെത്തുക, പുതിയതായിട്ട് അവർക്ക് പുതിയ സാഹചര്യങ്ങൾ ഒരുക്കി കൊടുക്കുക, ഭൂമിയിൽ ഈ പ്രദേശത്തിന് അനുയോജ്യമായ ഭവന നിർമ്മാണ രീതികൾ കണ്ടെത്തുക. ഇത്തരം പരിശ്രമങ്ങളാണ് കണ്ടെത്തുന്നത്.
Manro Island is a small island situated at the confluence of Kallada River and Ashtamudi Lake in Kollam district. It is an amalgamation of 8 small islands. The main attraction of the island is numerous interconnecting canals made for transportation and agriculture purposes. Manro Turut Grama Panchayat covers a geographical area of 13.37 square kilometer. The Panchayat has a population of 10,380 distributed across 13 wards. The primary occupation and source of livelihood of the people are agriculture, coir making, aqua farming, inland fishing, and other related activities. Life in Manro Turut was unperturbed until early 90s till the construction of Kallada Dam. Traditionally, Kallada River used to bring in nutrient-rich clay, minerals, and deposit in the estuarine system. Farmers used to create polder land for housing and allied infrastructure, and paddy land bunds using the clay mixed with the fine sand and coir pith. Ever since the Kallada Dam was built, the river flooding stopped. Thus, the natural supply of nutrient-rich deposit and fine grains also reduced. Flooding became a frequent phenomenon. Houses began to settle and sink deep down below surface. The tsunami in 2004 aggravated the already deteriorating environmental issues. After the tsunami, flooding and saltwater intrusion caused by the tidal waves became a daily phenomenon in Manro Islands. The coconut trees, which is the backbone of Manro Islands economy, began to wither away. Many traditional endemic fish species began to disappear, and many seawater species began to appear in river, including jellyfish. Floodwater entered dwelling houses at 3 to 4 feet high, making life of Manro unbearably miserable. Saltwater played havoc with the traditional brick houses. They began to break apart and disintegrate. In a desperate attempt to protect land and houses from the tidal flooding, people resorted to bring sand from other areas and tried to fill the plots with it. They mistakenly look upon the interconnecting canals as a prime reason for flooding. This paves a way for sand mafia. Under the pretext of filling up the land, they began to reclaim the narrow connecting canals, which were the blood veins of Manro Island. As canals were choked, reclaimed, and diverted, water began to flow over the surface and spread to other areas, hitherto unaffected by flooding. More and more areas began to experience tidal flooding. By the year 2015, out of 13 wards, 7 wards are already reeling under the effects of tidal flooding. People had no other option but abandon the place and move to safer location. There are more than 300 such abandoned houses in the Monroe Island, and this number is increasing each year. As people could not find any alternate natural source of livelihood, they were forced to resort to sand mining from Kallada and Ashtamudi rivers, which made the situation worse even more. By the intervention of Panchayat and state government, several expert technical committee and legislative committee were appointed to study the environmental issues of Monroe Island. Several prominent and eminent environment scientists, experts, legislative committee members, and political leaders from both state and the central government visited and personally experienced the tragic plight of the people of Monroe Island. This committee recommended viable solutions to these environmental issues and financial support for infrastructure development and other alternate livelihood activities in Monroe Island. The first priority was to provide an alternate model to the conventional toilets in the flood-affected areas. Most of these conventional toilets were placed near the river banks. The flood water were flowing over the septic tanks, contaminating the river water, and people were unable to use these toilets during flood. To resolve this social issue, Panchayat made high-rise bio-toilets to 221 families living near the river banks with the technical support of State Shujitva Mission. The Panchayat prepared Disaster Management Plan in 2016 with the support of State Disaster Management Authority and trained people dealing with the emergencies during disasters. Panchayat have a well-prepared disaster management plan and the people are well trained in various disaster situations. Now the Panchayat has enlisted human and material resources, well-defined rescue maps, ever-ready rescue equipment, which helped them to handle the disastrous flood in 2018 easily. Relief camps were opened immediately without waiting for orders from the district administration or revenue authorities, and a material collection center was opened at the Panchayat office, and the management of camps were assigned to camp managing team as per the disaster management plan. Cooked food from outside was completely discouraged to avoid potential food poison incidents, and medical teams were posted in all camps permanently to avoid contagious diseases and for urgent medical assistance. The biggest challenge Panchayat faced after the floodwater receded was removing silt and mud that had accumulated in all flooded areas. It was more than 2 feet deep, and removing it from footpath and houses was a Herculean task. For this, Panchayat organized massive cleaning campaign with the help of social activists, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme workers, Panchayat staff, members, NCC cadets, and volunteers from NGOs for 3 consecutive days. The damage to the infrastructure facilities in the Panchayat was a huge and irreparable. 2 main bridges were collapsed and the PHC and its subcenters got damaged. As a timely intervention, the state government has allotted 3.5 crores for the construction of new family health center and 25 lakhs for the construction of new subcenters. Another obstacle to the development is the Coastal Regulation Zone Act. Almost 70% of the available land area of Monroe Island falls within CRZ regulations, and the construction of new building has become almost impossible. It has badly affected the tourism potential of Monroe Island, but in another way, it also served to preserve the serene natural beauty of the backwater of Monroe Island. Farmers of Thummarukkudy, who have been facing slew of problems such as tidal ingress and saline intrusion, will soon switch to a new and sustainable system. A project integrating biosaline agriculture and cage aquaculture, developed by the International Research and Training Center for Below Sea Level Farming, will help them in protecting their crops from the adverse effect of environmental degradation. There are more than 50 homestays, 3 resorts, and more are on the way. More than 200 families found livelihood in tourism-related activities, and their number is increasing day by day. By the timely intervention of local self-government and the state government, the Monroe Island transferring to a new sustainable life.
Thank you, the president and the team from the Monroe Gram Panchayat. Now we are moving into the discussion part where our panelists, we have 3 panelists with us. One is Mr. Unnikrishnan Divakaran Nair, and we have Dr. Geeta Lashmi and Dr. Shekhar Kuriakose with us. We start with Mr. Unnikrishnan Divakaran Nair. Unnikrishnan is at the moment the head of the Climate Change Division of the Commonwealth Secretariat in London. We are happy that he is available for the day here for this program. He has worked throughout, right from Kerala to UK and the global scenario, starting his, having his career in various positions, especially working on climate change and other areas. So over to Sri Unnikrishnan for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Kila. Thank you, Joy, for this wonderful opportunity to speak. And I was literally impressed by the 7 presenters from Karumathur Gram Panchayat to Monroe Gram Panchayat. Like, പറയാൻ വാക്കുകളില്ല, നല്ല രീതിയിലുള്ള വർക്ക്. I think it's a very good initiative moving forward, and it's all the more important to bring such kind of important work to the forefront of national and international discussion. So once again, I'll thank Kila for that, actually. And definitely, I think Government of Kerala is taking a lot of good initiatives to work on its strengths, which is basically decentralized management of issues. And now environment is under question. So we are doing the most appropriate thing currently. Yeah, so coming from the Commonwealth Secretariat as the head of the section for climate change, I think for the Commonwealth, India is a very important country, actually. So India is 50% of the Commonwealth. And as all of you know, it's home to around 1.35 billion people. And looking at some of the projects around disaster management, around coastal management, it has a lot of similarity to what we do among the 32 small island development states that we have as members under the Commonwealth. And the third angle is we have a population of more than 2 billion, of which around 60% are under the 30 years of age. So definitely for Commonwealth and the Commonwealth Secretariat, this is an important move, especially when it comes to decentralized management and also like local action for climate commitments. So as Joy said, like I've been involved in the preparation of at least around 18 state action plans of India. And yes, definitely we had a lot of discussions around the state action plan of Kerala. Looking at all the presentations today and listening to the great work that some of the Gram Panchayats have done, and I'm sure there are many more to talk. So I would like to categorize my response into 5 major, what do you call, unique I'll say unique points around these projects that we have seen, or these initiatives that we have seen. So the most important thing is a context-specific program, because we know when the action plans are made, when the programs are made, when the missions are made. So most of the time, that's basically based on previous experiences, based on what do you call, general recommendations. But looking at what we've heard from these Gram Panchayats, I think a lot has gone into setting very specific, context-specific and effective programs. So to say, like, for example, if you look at the Karumathur Gram Panchayat, the Tourism Society, so basically that's a very localized and context-specific initiative. So Meenangadi Gram Panchayat went for the carbon neutral panchayat. So basically the baselining of that is giving the panchayat an option to look at mitigation adaptation option. The same is the case with the river and the forest protection by local resources, modernization of streams. And of course, the UN General Assembly is going on right now. So we were part of the UN General Assembly. There was a couple of side events. Nature-based solution is one of the strong words that the UN is proposing. So basically, I was very happy to hear the word regenerative development, regenerative agriculture coming out from Gram Panchayats, basically integrating most of the resource management activities under the adaptation and mitigation plan. Also the local action plan on climate change from the Nedumbana Gram Panchayat from Kollam. So I think that's basically what finally the state action plan should boil down to. We have seen similar planning, which is the localized action plan, which happened in Nepal before. But I think this is a model which is worth studying and worth popularizing among the policymakers in the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change in Government of India. The second point that I would like to bring is basically there is a higher social, environmental, and economic returns, basically, when we go for such decentralized actions and plans. So, for example, we have seen that in most cases, the benefits of local adaptation is outweighing the estimated cost, actually. So, for example, we have seen the apiculture and the farmer-producer companies from the Karamatu Gram Panchayat. I think farmer-producer company leading to climate resilience in agriculture is an important aspect. I did write a piece on that in the 2017 summit in India on the in Delhi on the state of the land report. So and also like the tree-based benefits and the tree mortgaging and also like the natural product-based small businesses that was talked by Viyapuram Panchayat. I think those are extremely good examples, which gives us a very clear picture that there is a high economic return and the returns are outweighing the estimated cost. And yes, internationally, we are also talking about the cost of inaction. So obviously at the local level, these are extremely good examples. In addition to that, the social and environmental cost, I think that's something which some of the Gram Panchayats talked about when it came to wetlands, when it came to the conservation of sacred groves, etc. And the third point is more equitable results. So I think we have got the most vulnerable people in the decision making. So for example, the people impacted by floods, the people impacted by landslides, the people impacted by pests and diseases, they are now taking decisions on what need to be put in the plan, what need to be put in records, basically for short, medium, and long-term action. So that's important. And I am very happy to see the participatory disaster management plans, and would have loved to have feedback from Muralee Thummarukkudy sir, because he is a authority in that area. And the fourth point that I would like to bring forth is the more holistic and integrated approaches. I think I was amazed to see the linkages or the convergence which was established with the MG Narega's program of the Government of India. And I'm sure like there are more to come. Like we have one of the bigger programs coming up from the Government of India, the Jal Jeevan Mission. Basically, that has also very strong components of source conservation. And I think a community-driven approach of source conservation is something which should be the foundation stone for sustainable drinking water supply in the future. And I was also impressed to see the participatory carbon assessment done by Meenangadi Gram Panchayat, actually. So which is basically, and it has taken it from the graveyard to the agriculture fields, like sustainability incremation to agriculture fields, which is basically commendable. And the last point from my end is basically more of indigenous and local knowledge. And it was very, I was very happy again to hear the indigenous variety protection, the indigenous seeds protection, and also the wisdom of experienced people. I know my grandfather used to have, he used to manage a diary which had all the traditional rice varieties written, which is sown in different seasons. But we are gradually and steadily losing that. But yes, I think there are still good initiatives around conservation, and also like I think we have these heritage societies which are being created. Yeah, so these four are my major reflections when I see these very good examples coming from the Gram Panchayat. Moving forward, what I would also like to see more clearly, because there is a great scope for upscaling across Kerala, there is a great scope for upscaling across country, because I think everyone looks at Kerala for models actually. So I'm yet to see a lot of inputs around innovative financing models. So what are the kind of financing models that we would require when we move forward in some of these areas, like whether we have a sufficient amount of risk mitigation facilities, because the current variabilities around climate are so what do you call drastic, that most of the time we need we will be found what do you call in crossroads actually. And the second point is technology enabling. Like I did hear the automated weather station being mentioned by one of the Gram Panchayats, but definitely there are a lot of innovative technologies which can come handy when it comes to adoption of some of these technologies and some of these institutional practices. And of course, the last point will be institutional readiness. And definitely, I think we see a lot of convergence there. I think Haritha Kerala mission is one of the classical case of local convergence, and like very proud to see like how the government of Kerala is taking that forward. Yeah, I happen to see the the Ininyan Olgate program and the Pachaturuthu initiative. So those are like excellent examples where we're bringing sustainability in agriculture and also in soil and water conservation. And of course, the last point is capacity building. I think Kila is playing an excellent role basically in bringing capacity building initiatives to the Gram Panchayat, and also taking the communities into the action points around climate and climate action. So my last point will be that as Commonwealth and Commonwealth Secretariat, I'll definitely be able to take some of these good practices and examples to the larger audience of Commonwealth, and I'll definitely be trying my level best to give a platform in the Commonwealth Secretariat for some of these Gram Panchayats to present these cases and to showcase to the 54 member countries that the decentralized action around decentralized climate action is a possibility, because agencies like the Green Climate Fund has come up with what they call the enhanced direct access. So these are basically initiatives to take the climate finance to the doorsteps of the vulnerable communities. So before I stop, I'd definitely like to say, after hearing, and I'm like pretty confident on the actions taken by the communities as well as by the state government, and to quote, human ingenuity have got us to where we are today, and with our environment, and human ingenuity can get us out of it. I think I'm very confident after hearing this presentation from the Gram Panchayat. Once again, thanking Kila, and also thank you to all the Gram Panchayats for the excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Unnikrishnan. Thank you very much. I now understand that even though you are in UK, you are still following every activity is happening in Kerala. That's good. Anyway, thank you, Unnikrishnan. And also for the final words, that there will be an opportunity for some of our panchayats to showcase their experiences globally also. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Professor Geeta Lakshmi. Professor Geeta Lakshmi is a very close friend of Kerala. She has been with us.
Joy,
yeah.
Dr. Joy, can I interrupt you?
Yes, yes.
Because since Mr. Unnikrishnan talked, do you need a kind of a translation of that? I suppose it's not needed, I suppose.
No, we'll finally do it. When you start, you can just mention.
Okay. Yeah.
I also noted it down. Then I thought we will continue. And, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Please, go ahead.
Otherwise, we can do it now. Also, that's also fine. I mean,
I think better we finish it off. So
yeah. Okay. Will you do it?
Yeah, I'll try. I don't think that I can I'm really competent to really convey that spirit
Otherwise, I can ask Unnikrishnan to just say a few words in Malayalam and then
do that will be better.
That's the best thing. Yeah. Unni, please. പറഞ്ഞതിന്റെ ഒരു ചെറിയ രൂപം പറ.
അതായത് ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തുകളുടെ ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ അത് വളരെ impressive ആയിട്ടുള്ള presentation. In the Malayalam, over a period of time, I've become kind of Manglish. So sorry, I'm like requesting what do you call? So basically, എന്താണ് കോമൺവെൽത്ത് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കോമൺവെൽത്ത് സെക്രട്ടേറിയറ്റിന്റെ ഒരു മാൻഡേറ്റ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മെമ്പർ കൺട്രീസിന്റെ ഇടയിൽ പല കാര്യങ്ങൾ, അതായത് അത് എൻവയൺമെന്റ് ആൻഡ് ക്ലൈമറ്റ് തൊട്ട് ഇലക്ഷൻ തൊട്ട് ജെൻഡർ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഓഷ്യൻസ് ആൻഡ് നാച്ചുറൽ റിസോഴ്സസ്, അങ്ങനെ പല മേഖലകളിലും കോമൺവെൽത്തിലെ 54 മെമ്പർ കൺട്രീസ് തമ്മിലുള്ള ഒരു നോളജ് എക്സ്ചേഞ്ച് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവർ തമ്മിലുള്ള ഒരു സപ്പോർട്ട് മെക്കാനിസം, പ്രോജക്ട്സ്, അതാണ് ഒരു സെക്രട്ടേറിയറ്റിന്റെ ഒരു മെയിൻ ഫംഗ്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ അതില് ഇതുപോലുള്ള ക്ലാസിക്കൽ എക്സാമ്പിൾസ് വരിക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആണ്. അപ്പൊ അവിടെ എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത്, ഇതുപോലെ ഒരു ഡീസെൻട്രലൈസ്ഡ് ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ആക്ഷന്റെ ഒരു example with 7 gram panchayats talking to the world, അതൊരു പോസിബിലിറ്റി ആക്കാൻ പറ്റും. അതിന് ഞാൻ ശ്രമിക്കും എന്നുള്ളതായിരുന്നു എൻ്റെ ഒരു ലാസ്റ്റ് മെസ്സേജ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാല്. പക്ഷേ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഐ ടോക്ട് അബൌട്ട് ലൈക്ക് 5 ഏരിയാസ്, 5 മേഖലകൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 5 പോയിന്റ്സ് ആയിരുന്നു ഞാൻ റിഫ്ലക്ഷൻ ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞത്. അതായത് വളരെ കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റ് സ്പെസിഫിക്, അതായത് സിറ്റുവേഷൻ ഓറിയന്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രോഗ്രാംസ് ആണ്. അതായത് ഇതൊരു സെൻട്രലി അടിച്ചേൽപ്പിക്കപ്പെടുന്നതിലും കൂടുതൽ ലോക്കൽ സിറ്റുവേഷൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കി ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രോഗ്രാംസ് ആണ്. സോ വിച്ച് ഈസ് മോർ വാട്ട് യു കോൾ സൊല്യൂഷൻ ഓറിയന്റഡ്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ സോഷ്യൽ എൻവയൺമെന്റ് എക്കണോമിക് റിട്ടേൺസ്, അതായത് നമുക്ക് ഇതിനെടുത്തിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കോസ്റ്റ്, അതായത് ഈ പ്രോജക്റ്റുകൾ ചെയ്യാൻ എടുത്തിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കോസ്റ്റും അതിൽ നിന്നുള്ള റിട്ടേൺസും കമ്പയർ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ റിട്ടേൺസ് വളരെ വലുതാണെന്ന് ഉള്ള ഒരു പോയിന്റ്. പിന്നെ ഇക്വിറ്റബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള റിസൾട്ട് ആണ്, അതായത് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരുപോലെ റിസൾട്ട്, അതായത് ഒരു ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്തിനുള്ളിലോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിക്കുള്ളിലോ ആരെയും ഒരു രീതിയിലുള്ള വേർതിരിവുകളും ഇല്ലാതെ നാച്ചുറൽ റിസോഴ്സസിനെ ഒരു ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ ബേസിസ് ആക്കിയിട്ട് എടുത്തിരിക്കുന്ന ഡിസിഷൻസ് ആണ്. സോ ഐ തിങ്ക് ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് വേ ഓൾസോ ഇറ്റ്സ് കമന്റബിൾ. ദെൻ ഒരു ഇന്റഗ്രേറ്റഡ് ആൻഡ് ഹോളിസ്റ്റിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അപ്രോച്ച് ആണ്. അതിൽ ഏറ്റവും ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകൾ തമ്മിലുള്ള കോർഡിനേഷൻ. അതിൽ ഹരിത കേരളം മിഷൻ ഒരു വളരെ എക്സലന്റ് എക്സാമ്പിൾ ആണ്. ഞാനത് പല കൺട്രീസിലും ഇപ്പൊ കണ്ടുവരുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പൊ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ അവരൊക്കെ സ്പെഷ്യൽ പർപ്പസ് വെഹിക്കിൾസ് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിട്ട് തമ്മിൽ, ഇപ്പൊ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ കെനിയയില് ലോക്കസ്റ്റിന്റെ ഒരു അറ്റാക്ക് വന്ന സമയത്ത് അവർക്കൊരു ഏർലി വാർണിംഗ് സിസ്റ്റം എന്തോ ഉണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളതല്ലാതെ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ്സ് ഒരുമിച്ച് പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ട്രഡീഷൻ ഇല്ല. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് അത് വളരെ നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ഹരിത കേരളം മിഷൻ അത് മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ ഈ ലോക്കൽ നോളജ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ആസ്പെക്ട്, അതാണ് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത്. എൻ്റെ മുത്തച്ഛന്റെ ഒരു ഡയറി ഞാൻ പണ്ടെപ്പോഴും ചെറുപ്പത്തിൽ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ളതെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ പല നെല്ലിനങ്ങളുടെയും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ പലതരം മാവ് ഇനങ്ങളും അതുപോലെ പലതരം കശുമാവ് ഇനങ്ങൾ, ഇതെല്ലാം എൻ്റെ മുത്തച്ഛന്റെ ഡയറിയിൽ നിന്ന് ഞാൻ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിലും പക്ഷെ ഇന്ന് പലപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെയുള്ള വെറൈറ്റികളെ കുറിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള അറിവോ ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ അത് ഓരോ രീതിയിൽ അഡാപ്റ്റഡ് ആയിട്ട് നമുക്ക് പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമോ എന്നുള്ള ഒരു അറിവോ ഉണ്ടാവുന്നില്ല, ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുറഞ്ഞു വരുന്നു എന്നുള്ള ഒരു സാഹചര്യം. അപ്പൊ അതിൽ ഈ ഹെറിറ്റേജ് സെന്റേഴ്സും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇൻഡിജിനസ് വെറൈറ്റി കൺസർവേഷൻ പ്രോഗ്രാംസും ചെയ്യുന്നത് വളരെ വളരെ നല്ല കാര്യമാണ്. രണ്ടാമത് അവസാനമായി ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞൊരു 2-3 കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഞാൻ കൂടി ഇതിൽ കാണാൻ ആഗ്രഹിച്ചിരുന്നെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ അതായത് നമുക്ക് ഫൈനാൻസിങ് മോഡലുകൾ ഇതിൽ പലതും ഇന്നോവേറ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളത് വേണ്ടി വരും. അത് പല സാഹചര്യങ്ങളിലും ഇത് അപ്സ്കെയിൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ പല രീതിയിലുള്ള ഇന്നോവേറ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഫൈനാൻസിങ് മോഡലും കൊണ്ടുവരണം. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ടെക്നോളജി, ബിക്കോസ് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ പല രീതിയിലുള്ള ടെക്നോളജി, ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഫ്യൂച്ചറിലേക്ക് നോക്കി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ബ്ലോക്ക് ചെയിൻ ടെക്നോളജി, ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ലെഡ്ജർ, ഇതിലൊക്കെയാണ് കാര്യങ്ങൾ വരാൻ പോകുന്നത്. ബിക്കോസ് നമ്മളുടെ ചെറുപ്പത്തിൽ ഇന്റർനെറ്റ് ഒരു മരീചിക പോലെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ന് ബ്ലോക്ക് ചെയിൻ ടെക്നോളജി നമ്മൾ അങ്ങനെ കാണുകയാണ്. നാളെ ഒരു ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ലെഡ്ജർ ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു റിയാലിറ്റി ആവാൻ പോവാണ്. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഒരു ഫീൽഡ് എല്ലാം വളരെയധികം ട്രാൻസ്ഫോംഡ് ആവും. ഇപ്പം മെഡിസിനൽ പ്ലാന്റ്സിന്റെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പൊ അതില് സ്മോൾ ബിസിനസ്സിലോട്ട് പോകുന്ന സമയത്ത് അതിന്റെ ട്രേസബിലിറ്റി വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആണ്. ആസ് പെർ ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി കൺസർവേഷൻ ആക്ട് നമ്മൾ ട്രേസബിലിറ്റി കൊണ്ടുവരേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ അതൊക്കെ ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ടഡ് ലെഡ്ജേഴ്സ് പോലുള്ള ഇല്ലേ ബ്ലോക്ക് ചെയിൻ ടെക്നോളജി പോലുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ട് ഇനി ഫ്യൂച്ചറിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ പോവുകയാണ്. അപ്പൊ അതുപോലുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ അത്രയും ഒരു കട്ടിംഗ് എഡ്ജിൽ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പോലും ചെറിയ രീതിയിലുള്ള ഇപ്പം ഓട്ടോമേറ്റഡ് വെതർ സ്റ്റേഷൻ പറഞ്ഞു, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ വെതർ ഇൻഡെക്സ്ഡ് ഇൻഷുറൻസ്, അതുപോലുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരേണ്ടതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ കപ്പാസിറ്റി ബിൽഡിംഗ്. No, I don't want to eat up the time. I think Geeta is an excellent speaker, so we should listen to her actually. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Unikrishnan. So actually for others, non-Malayalam speaking people, this was only the translation of his talk. He already gave it in English. So he was just sharing his in Malayalam. He also got a chance to talk in Malayalam after a long time. And now over to Dr. Geethalakshmi. As I was mentioning, she has been a close friend of Kerala. She has been working in Kerala in one way or the other indirectly, especially sharing her knowledge. And also she is one of the stalwarts on climate change and agriculture. She is at the moment in the Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. So in fact, for our Gram Panchayats and others, she had actually taken classes for us long time back before we started doing this local action plan on climate change. So over to Dr. Geethalakshmi. Probably finally you can in a few words you can also have the Tamil kind of talk so that it is equal to Malayalam. Some of us only a gist of what you talked, so that it is easier for our Panchayat presidents also, Panchayat people also. Okay, please.
Yeah, first of all, I like to thank Dr. Joy, the director of KILA, for giving me this opportunity. And it's always a pleasure working with him. And again, to share the platform with Dr. Unikrishnan. And, we have been working quite a lot for the state of Kerala, as well as the rest of the places in India. And I was one of the persons contributing to a state action plan on climate change for agriculture sector. And it's giving me really a pleasure to again come back and then to give some of my remarks. And I strongly endorse all the words said by Unni, because that is the reality, kind of. So climate change is, though we say it is a global thing, but the actions need to be local. I'm seeing that Kerala is always in the forefront in showcasing the real actions on the ground. And they always are the example so that the other part of the nation can follow them up. So this is one such example that the Gram Panchayats have actually, they have practiced the state action plan of climate change of Kerala onto the ground. So this is a very good example. This is a very good practice that it has to be showcased everywhere. First to the rest of the state, and also to the rest of the nation, and also to the entire world. It has to be taken as an example. And the government is taking a lot of action, the state action plan on climate change, and they are looking at what is happening at the local level. They are looking at the ground reality, means the baseline data they are first taking, and then they are looking for vulnerability assessment. Then they come out with some of the very nice action plans which are really needed for the location specific thing. So I'm really happy in one of the cases in Tamil Nadu, we have been working together. Myself and Unni was working together in developing the watershed level climate change adaptation, that is climate proofing of watersheds. Like a lot of watershed activities are going on in general, but we have been doing the climate proofing of watershed, looking at what are the climatic risks in the current level, and then looking at what is going to happen in the future. And for that, what are the adaptations, what are the maladaptations, and how best we can make use of the good practices onto the ground, and then the people's livelihood could be improved. So that was one of the very interesting project. It was a very one of the successful project. It has been practiced throughout India, and all the states with the help of NABARD, this watershed program, climate proofing of watershed program is very well carried. And the very important thing is mainstreaming of the activities, suggested activities. That is very, very important. So we may have so much of government programs, ongoing programs. Instead of going and searching for the funds for the new programs, it is very, very important that with the ongoing programs itself, some of the activities suggested in the action plan could be integrated. So I'm really happy to see there are so many programs integrated at the village level, and thoroughly impressed. For example, the biodiversity program, that is really, really very good. They are going even with the seed concept of it. And not only that, the other one, carbon neutral project, it is absolutely brilliant. Looking at all the things, all the carbon neutral kind of things, I was really impressed to look at the way they have presented. So they have gone into each and every sector, starting from the transport sector, especially the electric sector. Everything has been from the renewable energy. It's a need of the hour. Every state has to follow such initiative so that we become self-sufficient and we are emitting lesser carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. People are now we have come to a consensus. Even if we don't emit a single molecule of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, whatever we have already done damage, that will be sufficient to warm the atmosphere for the next 50 years. If that be the case, we have to be very cautious and we have to minimize or curtail whatever the way possible the emissions into the atmosphere. So this is where this particular program, I really, really liked it, and the way they have taken and the way they have conceived and they have executed, it's really wonderful. And I would like to personally see the outcomes of this particular thing in terms of real quantification of how much carbon reduction has happened. Similarly, all the other projects, needless to say, because Muni has already highlighted each and every project, so all the projects has got its own kind of credibility. So it's a really a wonderful thing. And coming to the future kind of things, mainly I would like to request the Kerala state, because you are pioneering in everything, to go with some of the technological options so that the food production could be doubled. Now the government of India's target is doubling the food production and tripling the farmers' income. So that could be very well achieved in addition to the disaster management, because in the days to come, the disaster, the intensity as well as the frequency of disasters are going to become much more higher with the warming climatic conditions. So we have to be very much prepared for that. The capacity building is really important, and that is happening already at the grassroots level. Much more intensified and also organized capacity buildings are required to make each and every citizen in the grassroots level to become thorough in what is going to happen, especially in terms of disaster forecasting. So there are a lot of advancements have happened. Now we have to informate people to look forward to have the forecast information. In all the other countries, people are just watching the weather information and then only they are moving outside or planning any activities. Such activities are not happening within India, though we have at least in Kerala, you people are carrying umbrellas and so on, and kind of, but in the rest of the places, they don't even bother about what is going to happen. So our activities, day-to-day activities, has to be planned based on the weather conditions that are expected. So we become more weather conscious, we become more weather wise. So similarly, the technological things. So now all the recent technologies, artificial intelligence, use of remote sensing, and then the kind of robotic kind of things. So all these things we have to kind of make it at the local scale so that people appreciate for their decision making. One of the important thing what we have done is agro advisory services based on the weather, especially for making the food security of the nation. What we have done in Tamil Nadu is we are making customized agro advisory services to the farming community. Previously, we used to give weather forecast information and agro advisory to just to an area, kind of a block or a district scale. But maybe farmers who may own mango plantation and one farmer may be growing only paddy. So if we give a generalized advisories, it is not very well taken by the farmer who is not interested in that particular crop. So we are now giving customized services through artificial intelligence based on the forecast information to the farming community. Precisely, if a farmer is growing mango, only the advisory related to mango will go to him. Like that, we have improved our customized advisory service that's being very well received by the rest of the community. Another important thing is mechanization. Now, everywhere, especially in the agriculture field, people are not ready to go and work in the field because of the hot sun and other things. So mechanization is very, very important. That is also one of the way, precise mechanization. Just like the search it has come already, all those things, local knowledges and indigenous practices. So we have to always attach importance to that, find scientific validity of those things, and then we have just to give it back to the community in a better way so that they practice it themselves. I was thoroughly impressed, and I'm really having no words to congratulate all the 7 Gram Panchayat who have done a very excellent job, and congratulations to all the other officials who made this to happen at that particular level. This is really a big example, and thank you very much for the opportunity given. I will come back for any questions. Thank you, Dr. Joy, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gidalakshmi. Now we move on to Dr. Shekhar Kuriakose. I think he doesn't require an introduction. He's the person for disaster management in the state, not least the state. He's a well-known person in the field. He's the member secretary of the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority. And as I am told, he's actually in the midst of red alerts coming in for the next 3 days. Still, he has managed to be with us. Over to Dr. Shekhar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shekhar here. Thank you for organizing this seminar, and it's very interesting to see where we have reached from what we started long back in Monroe, as Mr. Binu was pointing out, and also in Peringara and Trivandrum City Corporation. So way back in 2015, when we started working on thinking from a local self-government level towards disaster risk reduction, we got a pilot grant from USAID and UNDP, using which we started working on local self-government level disaster management plans. The first attempt was in Peringara and Monroe, 2 local self-governments, one in Pathanamthitta, the other in Kollam, and of course, Trivandrum City Corporation. So all the 3 places we created disaster management plans, and that was really new for disaster management authority in itself. As Muralee was pointing out in the beginning, our perspective was very departmental, in the sense that we were thinking from a top to bottom approach towards disaster management. And it took, of course, for me, and when I came in afresh, I was tuned and attuned into the system through a departmental perspective. And then thanks to my former boss, Dr. Vivenu, who convinced me that it would be more ideal to work from bottom to top in this whole process. So it was, but then before that, we tried to prepare these plans, and Peringara has pointed, and Monroe has pointed it out, that they were able to do that plan way back in 2016. But when we looked at that whole document that was done in 2016, we did see post 2018 that there were many things that we could have done. And of course, Kila took the lead. Dr. Joy was, we were very fortunate to have him there, who could look at disaster management also from a local self-governance perspective. So the whole thing fitted in an opportunist time, and that is actually the time when the state also woke up to the fact that there has had to be a lot more attention towards disaster management. So yes, now we are here where we see that people are starting to discuss disaster management, the term has become really, really local, which is the most important thing. I hear a number of local self-government leaders talking about disaster management. I get calls from local self-governments asking us to help them towards formulating some plans. So yes, now the most interesting point, and this is actually a news for everybody here to state, that coming year onwards, we might also have a good amount of money available for local mitigation works. So as we speak, in the last 2 days, I was working on some of the guidelines for it. Some funding is coming. You local self-governments who have taken up this wonderful initiative of disaster risk reduction and have prepared their DM plans meticulously would find that we might be able to chip in some funds for you. So I also take this opportunity, thanks to Gila, to place this here in a common platform where the local self-government should start thinking now on to come up with very competitive proposals, because the requirement of scrutiny in those proposals are of the highest order. We have been asked to seek certain extraneous help as well to get this going. So which implies that there might be a lot of things that we would be able to do at the grassroots level with additional funding other than what you would mainstream and have from your own budgets or state allocations. So yeah, this is really a time. I heard Unni speaking about climate financing and financing of such actions for the local self-governments. Yes, here we are offering. We are coming up with that. We could also think of innovative ways of ensuring property of local self-governments, which is something that I had been trying to work out with my within the state, wherein we generally don't think of risk transferring any assets that we create at the local level or the state level. For example, it'd be even the secretariat building of the state, where we don't have a risk transfer concept involved in it. I think we should start thinking like that, and this kitty might help you do that. While I speak of disasters, yes, it is very interesting to see the initiative at Meenangadi Panchayat, and I'm very proud to say that one of those people who worked in that whole project, Mr. Nidin Davis, was working with us for 2 years. So I have got that first-hand know-how of understanding that whole project in its entirety. So now that these pilots are available, I think we should start looking at scaling it to other levels. While we also talk about successes, I also would like to be a bit self-critical at this juncture, being this an academic initiative. Joy sir, I have to just mute for a while. I am getting a call from the top. So just a minute, the red alerts are calling.
We will wait for Shekhar. നമ്മൾ കുറച്ച് നേരം ശേഖരന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് വെയിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാം. കോള് വരുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ്. In between, I also want to tell you that we have with eminent personalities in this group, especially Madam Sharda Muralitharan, who has been spearheading this disaster management plan, as well as moving on to climate resilient governance, local governance. In fact, she actually made the real change, the paradigm shift in getting this disaster management plan prepared at the local level. And also now we have Dr. Thomas Isaac, the Honorable Finance Minister, also with us. In the meantime, until Shekhar comes back, I would request Sharda Madam, the Principal Secretary, Sharda Muralitharan, the Principal Secretary of Kerala State, Kerala's Local Self-Government Department, to have her comments on this. Madam. Hello, Madam.
Joy sir.
Okay, you are back.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, I also see Honorable Minister for Finance now. In this whole process, we also need to be a bit self-critical at this juncture, and I take this opportunity to be doing that. While we have plans, I also think that we should have institutional mechanisms to sustain those plans, be it climate change or disaster management. And the reason why I'm insisting on this is, if there are no champions available for these transdisciplinary, transdepartmental problems, we would end up really not having a sustenance for whatever we are trying to do here. Luckily, under Rebuild Kerala initiative, KSDMA and KILA together is able to engage 14 local self-government disaster management plan coordinators in all the district planning offices. But even further down, I think we should have climate guards, if we could call them, or we should call them disaster management guards. I don't know, a good name has to be found, but I think at the last mile, amongst, at least from a voluntary perspective, or with some mechanism, we should have guards for taking this cause forward at the last mile. Why I'm telling you this is, in Trivandrum, while there is a wonderful city disaster management plan and the city corporation has funding for it and a little disaster management cell available to itself, what I see is that there is no real infusion of blood into the whole process. So it's not yet organic in the system of local self-governance. So while we have done and achieved so much, we have a long way to go. So whatever from whatever I see, I see that local self-governments have this slowly starting to come into their local common parlance, which would be promising thing for all of us to look forward to. So with this, I think I should stop here, and I thank everybody, the organizers, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shekhar, for being with us, and also having self-critical also, as well as pointers to the panchayats also. Good. And now I hand over this session to Dr. Joseph, the director of Gulati Institute, to carry on with the discussion part of the webinar. Over to Dr. Joseph.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. We by now had 7 really impressive presentations from the local panchayats and very eminent personalities, experts reflecting upon these experiences. So there are some, before opening the discussion, we have Honorable Finance Minister, Madam, also we have got Madam Sarada Muralidharan and others. Something which repeatedly coming in the whole discussion, starting from Sri Unnikrishnan and now also Sri Dr. Shekhar Kuriakose, is what's the kind of concerning about the sustainability of the whole initiative. We have got incredibly useful pilot projects. These pilot projects, will they remain as pilots? And what is the kind of scope for replicating in this, as rightly Professor Gita Lakshmi said, in other parts of the country? And in the inaugural session, what Dr. Muralee Thummarukkudy said, in terms of taking across the country, beyond the country. So this is something which we have to really reflect upon. And particularly when you talk about climate change, biodiversity, or disaster management, all the panelists rightly said that this could be possible if and only if one agent acting in isolation. This is possible only through a collective coming together of different actors and institutions. So there is the need for what is called an institutional engineering. So how this is being done? So I think this is something which we have to reflect further. And before taking much time from you, I would like to request Madam Sarada Mulidharan to reflect on the presentations already made. Over to you, Madam Sarada Mulidharan.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. I would like to start from where Shekhar left off, saying that our journey, there is quite a lot to do. The disaster management plans that the local governments came up with for 2021 were actually had very little lead time. And so while the idea was grand, the execution still leaves much to be desired. But it has opened up immense possibilities. We did see very interesting manifestations of the plan. On the one hand, although we did give a huge space in the plan for vulnerability assessment, for looking at the chronology of disasters, of taking together the maps and putting them, layering them and coming up with geospatial understanding of how disasters work and what to do to tackle them. We really didn't expect local governments to be able to do much on that front. And so it was an attempt to get something off the ground so that it could become a base for later. Interestingly, however, many of these local governments had come out with extremely well-documented, researched, and participatorily researched documents which covered the gamut of change that has happened, the impact of disaster, the resource, the local resource that is available. And because of this, when COVID hit us and we were all of us under lockdown, it just so happened that Kerala had a huge fund of information and knowledge about what could be used and how in the context of COVID. So this was an unexpected benefit of the disaster management planning that we did. But what we look at going forward, we have seen, of course, that out of the plans, the larger focus that has come in right now is on the emergency response teams, on rescue and shelter. But moving from there to mitigation is not something which has really got internalized or institutionalized in the way we have worked out our plans. Hearing the presentations, particularly the ones on biodiversity, it was interesting to see that much of what we have done by way of biodiversity also would count for mitigation. And perhaps it is a matter of our being able to position and understand that. There is, when we looked at Meenangadi Panchayat and the carbon sequestration it has done and the projects that have come out of it, interestingly, again, you see projects which come out that many panchayats have taken, but which have perhaps taken them in an ad hoc manner or standalone manner and not realizing or not understanding completely the import of what it means for leaving a soft carbon footprint or for long-term ecological sustainability. And that understanding is perhaps critical in ensuring that the idea of the green protocol, the idea of the Pachadurutha, the idea of responsible and sustainable development is woven into the projects that we do. In this 25th year of local governments in Kerala, we have been thinking that it is time now to perhaps up the ante and move towards outcome-based planning, move towards realization of the SDGs. We are also working towards it, but today, everywhere in the country, and Kerala is no exception, right now we're looking at the SDGs only by way of what is it that we monitor and report on, and not looking to see as to what extent is it that our plans and our interventions are impacting the SDGs. Climate and climate resilience is also an SDG that we are aspiring to. And if we look at the other SDGs as well, be it health, be it gender, be it hunger, be it poverty, all of these can tie up very neatly and beautifully with the idea of disaster resilience leading to climate resilience. So we've got our work cut out in terms of how we would like to position and push local governments to develop further on the capability and an intention that they have been able to show so far in this very short time period going forward. And I think that also the template of the spatial planning which has come in, I mean, areas we would be needing to work on further would be to see how our geospatial planning, which is right now a town and country planning exercise, gets becomes a framework and a bulwark against our against anti-ecologically sustainable interventions that could probably come out in the future. So how is it that community itself becomes a bulwark against ecological damage for climate resilience? We've started the journey. There is quite a bit more to go, and we need to keep on doing workshops, keep on returning to the drawing table, keep on figuring out how to demystify climate resilience, because that was the first thing that the Honorable Finance Minister told us when we went to him with the idea of the disaster management plan, that it needs to be something that the community can assimilate and work on and tap into that local knowledge and use that local knowledge well. So it's good beginnings, and it is also very heartening to see the kind of interventions that have happened, to see what we set out on paper, and which then Kila managed to put together by way of capacity building, and how that has materialized. But we do realize that there is much more to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Sarada Muralidharan, for, I must say, those inspiring and at the same time incredibly insightful words. And I think those words were very useful, not only for those who already worked with you and otherwise, and also those who are going to get into the Gotha. So thank you very much. We have with us Dr. Thomas Isaac, our Honorable Finance Minister. Sir, would you like to come? Would you like to? Hello, sir. Over to you, please.
Please unmute. Please unmute.
Yeah. കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല കേട്ടാ.
Please unmute.
Unmute ചെയ്യണേ.
Just 3 questions. അത് ഓരോ ചോദ്യത്തിനും ഇവിടെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ നടത്തിയ പഞ്ചായത്തുകൾക്ക് പ്രതികരിക്കാനുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എൻ്റെ അറിവിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ചോദിക്കുന്നതാണ്. നമ്മുടെ ഈ മേഖലയില് ഏറ്റവും പഴക്കമുള്ള ഇടപെടല് ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി രജിസ്റ്ററാണ്. നമ്മുടെ 10ാം പദ്ധതി മുതൽ ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഇടപെടൽ മേഖലയായിരുന്നു. ഇപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ തയ്യാറാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള റിപ്പോർട്ടുകളിൽ ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി രജിസ്റ്ററിന് എന്തെങ്കിലും സ്ഥാനം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നോ? അന്ന് 10ാം പദ്ധതി കാലത്ത് തയ്യാറാക്കിയ ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി രജിസ്റ്റർ നിങ്ങളുടെ ഏതെങ്കിലും പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ രണ്ടാമത് പുനരാവിഷ്കരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എന്താണ് അന്നും ഇന്നും തമ്മിലുള്ള വ്യത്യാസം എന്ന് ആർക്കെങ്കിലും വിശദീകരിക്കാമോ? പറഞ്ഞ മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ? ഇന്നത്തെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻസിന്റെ ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഇടപെടല് ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി രജിസ്റ്റർ തന്നെയാണ്. അവിടെ നിന്നാണ് തുടക്കം. ഏതെങ്കിലും പഞ്ചായത്ത് അനുഭവം പറയാമോ?
നമസ്കാരം സാർ, കുറുമാത്തൂർ ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്ത് പ്രസിഡന്റ്.
ഏത് പഞ്ചായത്ത്?
കുറുമാത്തൂർ ഗ്രാമപഞ്ചായത്ത് പ്രസിഡന്റാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്.
കണ്ണൂർ.
2011 ആദ്യമായി ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി രജിസ്റ്റർ ഞങ്ങൾ പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിച്ചു. 10 വർഷം ഏകദേശം കഴിയുമ്പോൾ വീണ്ടും ഞങ്ങൾ അത് പുനഃപ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അന്നത്തെ അന്വേഷണത്തിൽ കണ്ടെത്തിയതിൽ നിന്നും വ്യത്യസ്തമായി കുറെ കൂടി പ്രകൃതിയോട് ഇണങ്ങി കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിർവഹിക്കപ്പെടാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റുന്ന വിധത്തിലുള്ള വൈവിധ്യങ്ങളെ നമുക്ക് പുതുതായി കണ്ടെത്താൻ സാധിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. പഴയതിൽ പലതും ഇപ്പോഴും നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു പോയ സാഹചര്യവും ഉണ്ട്. കുറുമാത്തൂർ പഞ്ചായത്തിനകത്ത് ഉപജീവന പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് കാർഷിക മേഖലയെയും നമ്മുടെ പരമ്പരാഗതമായ അനുഭവങ്ങളെയും മുൻനിർത്തിയുള്ള ഒരു പ്രവർത്തനമാണ് ഞങ്ങളിപ്പോൾ ഏറ്റെടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. പ്രകൃതി തന്നെ വളരെ അനുഗ്രഹിച്ച ഒരു പ്രദേശമാണ്. ഒട്ടനവധി കാർഷിക സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ പഞ്ചായത്തിനകത്തുണ്ട്. ജില്ലാ അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ ഫാം, ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റി സെന്റർ, പന്നിയൂർ കുരുമുളക് ഗവേഷണ കേന്ദ്രം, കൃഷി വിജ്ഞാന കേന്ദ്രം, RITTC അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ ടെക്നോളജി ട്രെയിനിങ് സെന്റർ തുടങ്ങിയ ഒട്ടേറെ കാർഷിക പ്രധാനമായ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളുണ്ട്. അവയെല്ലാം ഒരു ബയോഡൈവേഴ്സിറ്റിയുടെ ഒരു സെന്ററായി മാറിക്കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അതിനെല്ലാം ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്തി അവിടുത്തെ വാന നിരീക്ഷണം, പക്ഷി നിരീക്ഷണം തുടങ്ങിയ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളൊക്കെ തന്നെ ഇതിനോടകം ഇതിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നു. ഇവിടെ നമ്മുടെ സർ സയ്യിദ് കോളേജിന്റെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പളായിരുന്ന ഖലീൽ ചുവാസ, അദ്ദേഹം നമ്മുടെ കരിമ്പം DAF ജില്ലാ അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ ഫാം അവിടെ നടത്തിയ നിരീക്ഷണത്തിൽ ഏകദേശം 150ഓളം ഇനം പക്ഷികളെ അവിടെ കണ്ടെത്താൻ സാധിക്കുകയും അതിൽ 50ഓളം ഇനം പാരറ്റ്, തത്ത, പച്ചത്തത്തകൾ ഒക്കെ കണ്ടെത്താനും കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. അവയെല്ലാം ഞങ്ങളിപ്പോൾ ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ചെയ്ത് ഒരു രജിസ്റ്ററായി സൂക്ഷിക്കുന്ന പ്രവർത്തനമടക്കം ഇപ്പോഴും നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്.
Yeah, congratulations, excellent.
It would be good it is translated a little bit.
Yeah, I will translate it. See, normally biodiversity registers in Kerala have been a static document. You prepare a list of all the different type of plants and animals and birds in the panchayat, and that's it. That document is very well documented, but it just kept there. But now the Karimathur Panchayat is used as an instrument, active instrument to further strengthen the biodiversity. And this is also being helped by a number of agricultural institutions which are prevalent there. And now from plant, they have moved to ornithologists, the birds and so on. So in fact, this is a very good example of using biodiversity as an instrument, register as an instrument to strengthen the biodiversity. See, when you started the program, everybody was thinking we'll have a register that will help us to claim our gene pool and so on and so forth. It's a bit too far-fetched and big. And after some time, people have started losing interest in that. But it will have a very practical, important use, and that's being demonstrated here. Now, I want a second question. നമ്മുടെ ഡിസാസ്റ്റർ മാനേജ് പ്ലാൻ തയ്യാറാക്കുന്നതിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് 30-ൽ പരം വിവിധങ്ങളായിട്ടുള്ള ജിയോ ഫിസിക്കൽ ബയോ മാപ്പുകൾ നമ്മുടെ പഞ്ചായത്തുകളുടേത് ലഭ്യമാക്കിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അത് വലിയൊരു അച്ചീവ്മെന്റാണ്. ഇത്രയധികം എന്ത് പരിമിതി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലും മാപ്പുകൾ നമുക്ക് തയ്യാറാക്കി പഞ്ചായത്തുകൾക്ക് നൽകാൻ കഴിയുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത്. ഇൻഫാക്റ്റ് ഒരു 30 വർഷം മുമ്പുണ്ടായതിനേക്കാൾ വലിയൊരു എടുത്തിയാട്ടമാണ് ഈ വിവരസഞ്ചയത്തിൽ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുള്ളത്. എനിക്കറിയേണ്ട കാര്യം ഇതാണ്, ഈ മാപ്പുകൾ ഏതെങ്കിലും പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ ഫലപ്രദമായിട്ട് ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഉപയോഗിച്ചതെങ്കിൽ അതെങ്ങനെയായിരുന്നു? ഇനി എന്ത് ചെയ്യാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നു? ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ആർക്കെങ്കിലും കമന്റ് ചെയ്യാനുണ്ടോ?
കമന്റ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ളവർ അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് സംസാരിക്കണേ.
ഞാൻ അരവിന്ദാക്ഷൻ, എറണാകുളം ജില്ലയില് കടുങ്ങല്ലൂർ പഞ്ചായത്ത്. ഞങ്ങൾ വാർഡ് അനുസരിച്ചിട്ട് ഓരോ വാർഡിന്റെയും മാപ്പ് തയ്യാറാക്കിയിരുന്നു. ആ മാപ്പിനകത്ത് വരാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ള അപകടങ്ങൾ വരാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങളും വെള്ളം കയറാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങളും ഇതെല്ലാം രേഖപ്പെടുത്തിയിരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ രീതിയിലുള്ള മാപ്പുകളും തയ്യാറാക്കി. ആ മാപ്പുകൾ ഇനി അത് എങ്ങനെ ഉപയോഗിക്കും എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ ഒന്നും പ്രവർത്തിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. ഇനി എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടായിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അത് ഉപയോഗിക്കത്തക്ക രീതിയിലുള്ള മാപ്പുകളാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ തയ്യാറാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ളത്.
കടുങ്ങല്ലൂർ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോ പറവൂർ അടുത്ത് എവിടെയാ?
പറവൂർ താലൂക്കില് കളമശ്ശേരിക്ക് അടുത്ത്.
അതെ അതെ അതെ. ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കട്ടെ, നിങ്ങൾ ചെയ്തത് നിങ്ങളുടെ പഞ്ചായത്തിന്റെ വാർഡ് തിരിച്ചുള്ള മാപ്പുകൾ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, റൈറ്റ്? എന്നിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കിട്ടിയ മറ്റു മാപ്പുകൾ അതിന്റെ ഉയർച്ച താഴ്ചകള്, ജലവിധാനം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മൺതരം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവിടുത്തെ സസ്യസമ്പത്ത്, ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടായ മാപ്പുകൾ ഇതിന്റെ മുകളിൽ ഓവർലേ ചെയ്ത് വാർഡ് അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ നിങ്ങൾ മാപ്പുകളാക്കി മാറ്റി. എന്താ ചെയ്തത്?
അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
അതിനെങ്ങനെയാ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അവിടെ വരയ്ക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന കാർട്ടോഗ്രാഫർ ആരെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നോ?
ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഓരോ വാർഡിലും ഞങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ സന്നദ്ധ സേനയിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ, അതിനെ പറ്റിയ ആൾക്കാരുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അവര് ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് അതിനുവേണ്ടി തയ്യാറായി. അതിനു വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ ഈ മാപ്പുകളെല്ലാം പ്രദർശിപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ടുള്ള ഒരു എക്സിബിഷൻ നടത്തിയത്.
മൺറോത്തുരുത്തും പറയാം. മൺറോത്തുരുത്ത് പ്രസിഡന്റ് അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യണം. കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലായിരുന്നു, അതാ ഞാൻ പറയേണ്ടി.
അല്ല, കുഴപ്പമില്ല. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മളിപ്പം അറിയാലോ, മൺറോത്തുരുത്തിലെ 7 വാർഡും മറ്റേ നമ്മളെ സംബന്ധിച്ചെല്ലാം ഈ എല്ലാ സമയവും വെള്ളം കയറുന്ന ഒരു പഞ്ചായത്താണ്. അതായത് മറ്റേ വേനൽക്കാലത്ത് വേലിയേറ്റം കയറുക, അല്ലാത്ത സമയത്ത് നമുക്ക് ഫ്ലഡ് വരിക, രണ്ടും സെയിം അനുഭവിക്കുന്നതാണ്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഈ മാപ്പിനകത്തൊക്കെ ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാല് നമുക്കൊരു ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ മൺറോത്തുരുത്ത് ഇപ്പൊ ഈ മാപ്പിങ്ങിനകത്ത് ഒരു വലിയ പ്രശ്നത്തിലേക്ക് പെട്ടുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അതായത് നമുക്കിപ്പോ CRZ മാപ്പ് എല്ലാം കൂടെ വന്നതോടുകൂടി ഈ വേലിയേറ്റം കയറുന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് കുറെ ഭാഗങ്ങളെ CRZ 1B എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് മാർക്ക് ചെയ്ത് മാറ്റുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതായത് ഇത് വേലിയിറക്ക പ്രദേശങ്ങളാക്കി മാറ്റിക്കൊണ്ട് വലിയ അപകടകരമായ സിറ്റുവേഷനിലേക്കാണ് മൺറോത്തുരുത്ത് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. അതായത് 250 വർഷമായിട്ടൊക്കെ ജനവാസം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന മേഖലകളെ വേലിയേറ്റ ആ ഒരു CRZ 1B മാർക്ക് ചെയ്ത് മാറ്റുന്നത് കാരണം ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ഉൾപ്പെടെ താമസിക്കുന്ന ഞാനിപ്പോ നിൽക്കുന്ന പ്രദേശം ഉൾപ്പെടെ 200 വർഷമായിട്ട് എൻ്റെ അച്ഛനൊക്കെ താമസിക്കുന്ന പ്രദേശങ്ങൾ പോലും ഇനി ഇത് താമസയോഗ്യമല്ല, ഇനി എൻ്റെ വീടൊക്കെ പൊളിഞ്ഞു പോയാൽ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഭാഗത്തേക്ക് വീടൊക്കെ പൊളിഞ്ഞു പോയാൽ പോലും ഇനി പുനർനിർമ്മിക്കാൻ പോലും പാടില്ല എന്ന ഇതിലേക്ക് മാറ്റുകയാണ്. ഈ മാപ്പിന്റെ ഒരു അശാസ്ത്രീയതയാണ് ഞങ്ങളിത് കമ്പയർ ചെയ്താണ് ഞങ്ങൾ കാണുന്നത്. അതാണ് ഒരു ഭയങ്കര അത്ഭുതകരമായിട്ട് തോന്നുന്നത്. എനിക്ക് ശ്രീ തോമസ് ഐസക് സാറിന്റെ അടുത്തൊക്കെ പറയാനുള്ളത്, ഒരു വലിയ ഇന്റർവെൻഷൻ ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഭാഗത്തുനിന്നുണ്ടായില്ലെങ്കിൽ മൺറോത്തുരുത്ത് പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ ജനങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇനി വസിക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്ത അവസ്ഥയിലേക്ക് പോകും. ഞാൻ ഭാഗ്യമായിട്ട് കാണുന്നത് ശ്രീ തോമസ് ഐസക് സാറിന്റെ അടുത്തൊക്കെ ഈ പ്രശ്നത്തിൽ ഇടപെടണം എന്ന് അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുകയാണ്. കാരണം 200-250 വർഷമായിട്ടൊക്കെ താമസിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്ന പ്രദേശങ്ങൾക്ക് ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ചേഞ്ചിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് വേലിയേറ്റ നിരപ്പ് ഉയർന്നു എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞതിന്റെ കാരണം പറഞ്ഞ് ഇതിനെ CRZ 1B എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് മാർക്ക് ചെയ്ത് മാറ്റുകയാണ്. സാർ, ഇത്തരം മാപ്പുകൾ നമ്മൾ എങ്ങനെ അംഗീകരിക്കാൻ പറ്റും? ഓക്കെ, വേലിയേറ്റം കയറുന്നുണ്ടാവും, പക്ഷെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ജീവിക്കണ്ടേ? ആ പ്രശ്നത്തിൽ ഇടപെടണം.
അതെ അതെ. ഏതായാലും മാപ്പുകൾ നമ്മൾ ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിച്ചു എന്നുള്ളത് പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. കാരണം അത് കെട്ടിപ്പൂട്ടി വെക്കാം. അത് വെച്ചിട്ട് കുറച്ചെങ്കിലും പഞ്ചായത്തുകളിൽ അത് ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്തുന്നതിന് ഒരു പരിശ്രമം നടന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്താൻ ശ്രമിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ചില നിഗമനങ്ങളിലൂടെ നമ്മൾക്ക് യോജിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല. ഇപ്പോ മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്ത് പ്രസിഡന്റ് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ മൺട്രോത്തുരുത്ത് നമുക്ക് പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അവസ്ഥയുണ്ട്. പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് തന്നെ പരിശോധിക്കപ്പെടേണ്ടതാണ്. സാമാന്യമായിട്ടുള്ള കേരളത്തിലെ സ്ഥിതി വെച്ചിട്ട് അവിടുത്തെ വിലയിരുത്താൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. അവിടെ താമസം തുടർന്ന് വേണമെങ്കിൽ അവിടുത്തെ ആവാസ വ്യവസ്ഥയിൽ തന്നെ നമുക്ക് വലിയ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ടുവരേണ്ടി വരും. നമുക്കത് പ്രത്യേക പ്രൊജക്റ്റായിട്ട് തന്നെ പ്രസിഡന്റ് അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ആലോചിക്കാം. ബാലഗോപാലും ഒക്കെ വളരെയധികം അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ആശങ്കപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞത് ശരിയുണ്ട്, നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം. സോ I would flag that this is one area where we'll have to move ahead. The legislative secretary was already hinting about spatial planning. Well, this is a very important dimension where we will have to do certain skilling. ഒരു സാങ്കേതികമായിട്ട് ഇത് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്താൻ കഴിവുള്ള ടീം ഓരോ പഞ്ചായത്തിലും ഏതാനും പേരെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടാക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് മാത്രമേ നമുക്കിത് പ്രയോജനപ്പെടുത്താം. അതൊന്ന്. രണ്ട്, അങ്ങനെ വിദ്വാന്മാർ മാത്രം മനസ്സിലാക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് ഈ മാപ്പ് ഒന്നും ആരും ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നില്ല. മറിച്ച് ഇത് ജനങ്ങളുടെ ജ്ഞാനത്തിന്റെ കൂടി ഭാഗമാണ്. അതെങ്ങനെയാണ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുക? ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഈ മുകളിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്ന മാപ്പുകൾ, അതിന്റെ വാലിഡേഷൻ, അതിൽ ജനപങ്കാളിത്തം കൊണ്ടുവരിക, അങ്ങനെ ജനങ്ങളുടെ ബോധവും കൂടി ഇതിന്റെ കൂടി ഭാഗമാക്കി മാറ്റാം. ആൻഡ് ലാസ്റ്റ്, അതിനടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ നാളത്തെ ആക്ഷനുകൾക്ക് നമുക്ക് രൂപം നൽകാൻ ശ്രമിക്കാം. And now I don't want to go on asking questions. Of course, I can do that. മീനങ്ങാടി പഞ്ചായത്ത് പ്രസിഡന്റ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു.
സാറേ ഉണ്ട്.
ഹലോ.
സാറേ ഉണ്ട്.
നിങ്ങൾ ആദ്യത്തെ ഗഡു പണം വിതരണം ചെയ്യാനുള്ള വല്ല ഏർപ്പാടായ?
നമ്മളിപ്പോ സർവേ 2 വാർഡിൽ നടത്താൻ പറഞ്ഞു. നമ്മളിപ്പോ കണ്ടെയ്ൻമെന്റിലായിരുന്നു. എങ്കിൽ പോലും നമ്മൾ ഒരു വാർഡ് പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട് സാറേ. അടുത്ത വാർഡ് നമ്മളിപ്പോ നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
പിന്നെ ഒരു മോഹമാണ്. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഇലക്ഷനിലേക്കൊക്കെ പോണതിന് മുമ്പ് ആ തുടങ്ങി വെച്ചതില് ആർക്കെങ്കിലൊക്കെ താല്പര്യം ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ താല്പര്യം ഇല്ലാത്തൊരു പോട്ടെ.
അല്ല, സാറിന്റെ ഒരു ഡേറ്റ് തന്നാ മതി. സാറ് ഒരു ഡേറ്റ് തന്നാ മതി, അന്ന് നമുക്ക് കൊടുക്കാം.
ശരി, എന്റെ ഡേറ്റിനാ? ഓക്കെ, നമുക്ക് പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്ത് കളയാം. കാര്യമായിട്ട് നമുക്ക് പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യാം കേട്ടോ. കാരണം ഒരു വളരെ കോൺക്രീറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ആക്ഷൻ, അത് നാളത്തേക്ക് വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ടതുമാണ്. ഞാൻ വളരെ ഓടിച്ച്, താങ്ക് യു ബിന, ഞാൻ വളരെ ഓടിച്ച് നിങ്ങളുടെ കുറിപ്പുകൾ നോക്കിയായിരുന്നു. എനിക്ക് നേരത്തെ നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻസ് മുഴുവൻ കേൾക്കുന്നതിന് കഴിഞ്ഞില്ല. വൺ തിങ് ഈസ് വെരി സർട്ടൻ, ഈ ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ചേഞ്ച് കീഴ്ത്തട്ടിലെ വികസന ഇടപെടലിന്റെ ഒരു ഭാഗം, ബോധപൂർവം അറിഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഭാഗമായിട്ട് കേരളത്തിൽ മാറിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുക. ഇത് വളരെ വളരെ വിലപ്പെട്ട കേരളത്തിലെ പരിസ്ഥിതി വിവാദങ്ങള്, തർക്കങ്ങള്, അതൊക്കെ വളരെ മാക്രോ തലത്തിലുള്ള മൊബിലൈസേഷന്റെ ഒക്കെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ വന്നിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഏറ്റവും അവസാനത്തെ കസ്തൂരി രംഗനായാലും ഗാഡ്ഗിലായാലും അച്ചുഘട്ടായാലും നമുക്ക് ഒരു കാരണവശാലും കേരളത്തിൽ ആ തലത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ഇതിന് ഉത്തരം കണ്ടെത്താൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. ഐ ആം ടോട്ടലി കൺവിൻസ്ഡ്. നിങ്ങൾ അവിടെ നിന്ന് തുടങ്ങിക്കോ, നമ്മുടെ രാഷ്ട്രീയവും നമ്മുടെ ചേരിതിരിവുകളും എല്ലാം കൂട്ടിച്ചേർത്ത് അത് പരിഹരിക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്ത പ്രശ്നമായിട്ട് മാറ്റത്തെ. അതേ സമയത്ത് ആ മീനങ്ങാടി പഞ്ചായത്തിലെ എന്റെ പറമ്പിലെ ഫലഭൂയിഷ്ഠ നഷ്ടപ്പെടാതിരിക്കാൻ എന്ത് വേണം? ഇവിടുത്തെ കാവ് സംരക്ഷിക്കാൻ എന്ത് വേണം? ഇവിടുത്തെ ഉറവ് പറ്റാതിരിക്കാൻ എന്ത് വേണം എന്നൊന്ന് തൊട്ടുള്ള ചോദ്യമാകുമ്പോൾ അതിന് പ്രായോഗികമായിട്ട് താഴെത്തട്ടിൽ ഉത്തരം കണ്ടെത്താൻ ഓരോരുത്തരും നിർബന്ധിതരാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് പരിസ്ഥിതി പ്രസ്ഥാനം എപ്പോഴും പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ള മുദ്രാവാക്യം, യു തിങ്ക് ഗ്ലോബലി. യെസ്, അത് വേണ്ടി വരും. അല്ല മീനങ്ങാടിയെ കുറിച്ച് മാത്രം ചിന്തിച്ചിരുന്നിട്ട് കാര്യം. ബട്ട് യു ആക്ട് ലോക്കലി, നമ്മൾ പ്രാദേശികമായി അങ്ങനെയുള്ള വലിയൊരു ഇടപെടൽ നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിലെ തദ്ദേശ ഭരണ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിൽ ചെറുതും വലുതുമായി ഇവിടെ അവതരിപ്പിച്ച പഞ്ചായത്തുകളിൽ നിശ്ചയമായിട്ടും കുറച്ചുകൂടി ഭാവനയോടുകൂടി വലിയ രീതിയിൽ കാണുന്നവരാണ്. അത്രയും ഭാവനയെ കണ്ടില്ലെങ്കിലും ഒരു തോട് വൃത്തിയാക്കല്, ഒരു പച്ചത്തുരുത്തുണ്ടാക്കല്, കുറച്ച് മരം നടല്, ഈ രീതിയിൽ പ്രാദേശികമായിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ കാലാവസ്ഥ വ്യതിയാനത്തെ അഡ്രസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനുള്ള പരിശ്രമങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടായിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ അധികാര വികേന്ദ്രീകരണത്തിന്റെ ഒരു വലിയ നേട്ടമായിട്ട് നാളെ അറിയപ്പെടും. ഞാൻ കൂടുതൽ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്
ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലൂടെ പറഞ്ഞ ബാക്കിയുള്ളവർക്ക്
ഓക്കെ,
ഞങ്ങൾ ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നതൊക്കെ നല്ലതായിരിക്കും, അതുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
Now, Kerala has a long history of ecology struggles, but though most of the struggles have been fought at the macro level, at the meso level. We have had severe fights over protection of the Western Ghats. The report of the protection of the Western Ghats has been very, very emotionally, violently divisive reports, dividing people in the hill ranges. So it has been highly controversial. While all these controversies have been raging on, the presentations today exhibits a new phenomenon taking place. And that phenomenon is at the local level, there is growing sensitiveness to the environment problems. Not just sensitiveness, action at the local level. The panchayats preparing biodiversity, raised panchayats having a small green patch over there, getting concerned about carbon sequestration, trying to reduce the carbon emission from your area. Well, look at the variety of interventions that are taking place. At the macro level, debates become theoretical and so on, partisan. But when it comes to your plot of land, how to conserve the soil fertility there, how to preserve your little spring in your land, how to keep the shade tree over there. These are practical questions. There are no two answers. You want water, you want soil, you want this diversity. And there is no two answers to that. See, working from bottom up, that brings solutions. And this is something new that is happening in Kerala's decentralization. And this is a new dimension to democratic decentralization that is taking place. And I feel disaster management report, which is now being experimented, and numerous other biodiversity experiments that are taking place, they will soon gel into a position which will catapult Kerala into the forefront of fight against climate change. And that will be one of the greatest achievements of democratic decentralization. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's fine.
Joseph.
Okay, Dr. Joy, next week we are going to have education, isn't it?
No, education is over. Next week is health.
Oh,
and
okay.
I would also like to come in for 30 seconds.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think, friends, what we heard was the 9th edition of the National Webinar Series on Local Governments for Sustainable Development, Good Practice from Kerala. As in the previous webinars, during the last 2.5 hours, I think from the field, enormous amount of very highly appreciable experience was brought in. And as the finance minister very correctly summarized, while controversies are at macro meso level, what is going on at the grassroots level, at the local level, people are consciously reflecting upon the issues relating to climate change, biodiversity, and disaster management, and concrete actions are being taken. And this is perhaps one of the greatest achievements of decentralization during the last 25 years. Friends, thank you very much. And
Dr. Joseph, I would like to add 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
I'll come to you. I think we must thank on behalf of Kila and Harida Kerala Mission, all those who have naturally, as in the previous webinars, large number of people who have logged in online, and especially we are most thankful to the 7 local self-government panchayats, and for their very hard work which they have done, and the excellent display of their commitment to nature and future. And of course, we had Dr. Muralee Thummarukkudy. He actually set the tone for the discussion today. Thank you very much, Dr. Muralee. And our panelists, as I said, they were equally competent to reflect upon, and they brought forth to the table very insightful reflections based on the experience that they had. And we had Madam Sarada Muralidharan, and as usual, we had very provoking and relevant questions from our Honorable Finance Minister, and he really summarized in the appropriate manner. And we thank all of you. And more importantly, we thank all those who worked behind. So many people worked behind. Of course, most important, I must say, is Dr. Joy and his team, the technical team and his staff members, his faculty, and of course, my own colleagues also helped in that way. And all those who worked to make this event a grand success. We thank all of you. And over to you, Dr. Joy.
No, I just wanted to take on from Madam and Finance Minister mentioned. Actually, Kila has already announced around 100 plus online courses and training programs, where the maximum number of courses are in this sector, where we have primers on various aspects of biodiversity and management and other things, along with the Kerala State Biodiversity Board. Then with KSDMA, we specifically have the programs on how to read maps, and also specifically on spatial planning. But these are all primers and also for the public. And also at the moment, there is a course happening in association with UNEP that's on ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. So we have also foreseen some of these things, and most of these things are for the public, and it's already, some of them have already been started and others are in the queue. So, and we are open to actually working this. Many of these are in Malayalam, but we are open to having these things in English and Hindi also. If there is a demand, we can work together with other institutes across the country. I just wanted to add that.
I think that is the best way to conclude this meeting and this webinar. Thank you once again, and we shall meet next Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on an equally important issue dealing with health and local self-governments. Thank you very much. Okay, Joy.
Thank you,
Joy. That's great.
So, Joy, good.
Master, you're okay?
Okay.
I'm
very tired.
അതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ അധികം സംസാരിപ്പിക്കേണ്ടെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചതാണ്.
But I'm back to non-stop talking. It can be helped.
ലൈറ്റ് കുറവായിരുന്നു, മുഖത്ത് ലൈറ്റ് കുറവാ, അതാ ക്ഷീണം തോന്നി.
അല്ല, പക്ഷെ അധികം സംസാരിക്കണ്ട, അത് കുറച്ചുകൂടെ
സംസാരിക്കാൻ അസുഖം കൂടും.